All right. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to bring in our next guests. And they are...
Hey.
Hey. Hi, guys.
Are you guys in the same house?
Hey, Natalie.
Yeah. Hey, whoa, weird.
Hey, Mando.
Do you guys have headphones?
I do.
You have headphones? Natalie, do you have headphones? Sorry, I should have warned you. I don't mean to headphone shame you.
Yeah. Do you want me to get up there?
Yeah, just because we can hear a little bit.
Bleeds.
It bleeds.
Adam,
that's what they say in the biz. In the biz,
yeah, that's what they say in the biz. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go get some.
All right. Awesome.
What up, Adam? How's it going, dude?
I'm good. Long time no see. How are you, too?
Yeah, man.
We're good. I'm just decompressing from some anxiety about tech stuff that's not necessary. I gotta let it go.
Yeah, it's no big deal. Like,
it's not a big deal at all.
You put too much pressure on yourself.
I know.
Hold on one sec, guys.
That's why Nando is so great, because he's so chill. It's true.
That's me.
For an icon. What's that? For an icon.
You guys are professional left media people. You guys should know you need to be on headphones when you're on.
Well, I think maybe they don't usually do spousal appearances.
Still, always good idea to have headphones when you're doing.
Can we? Why does Mayor Pete suck though? I just want to give the people what they deserve.
Mayor Pete?
Oh wait,
he was in the CIA, most likely. He did that whole. He was at McKinsey, which is like the most evil company on the planet, or one of the most evil companies on the planet.
There you go.
And he's just like a total psychopath who like volunteered to go to Afghanistan in 2009, even though he had no need to do it, just because he knew he was gay and he wanted to be president, and he at the time figured that if I'm going to be gay and president, I need to be a troop so people don't think I'm like a pussy or something, So yeah, that's why I did that.
It's called gay trooper syndrome. Look at Adam; he's not co-signing this. The Dr. Gaffney is not prepared.
And Pete, Medicare for all who want it. It's one of the funniest things I can remember, like in politics in my life. We can do Medicare for all who want it.
No, that's not him. You can do better than that.
That was him.
That was
My impression. I don't know if I have. I've never practiced the Pete impression, so I can either practice it on air or practice it at home. And
whichever. This is a safe space. It's only because I respect you that I gave you that instantaneous feedback.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't him. Nando, do better.
Do better. I don't know. How would I do it, Pete?
I'm not. It's hard to do Pete without his mom, his stage mom.
It's hard to do Pete without sounding like Obama. Without.
Well, I had a great mashup to play, but we'll have to do that next time. So okay, let me unmute. Let me just do one thing, guys. Nando, can you start asking them about stuff?
Questions?
Just ask them.
I guess I'm curious. Adam, you are a professional.
I'll be right back.
You and Natalie are both very active in healthcare policy and stuff like that. Way more active than me. I'm just curious what you guys make of the whole hullabaloo that's been hullabalooing lately. What do you guys make? I mean, Adam, you, just so that people know, you former head of the Physicians for National Health program.
Mm-hmm.
And which is like basically doctors who want Medicare for all, is essentially, because Adam is a doctor. So yeah, what do you guys make of the whole hullabaloo?
Well, I mean, so I don't know, a couple of things. I think there's no question that this coming year is going to be absolutely critical for making the case for Medicare for all, for pushing it more onto the national stage, for holding politicians' feet to the fire, for building the coalitions we need to achieve it. The COVID-19 pandemic has wrought complete, destruction in terms of the existing healthcare that people have. Uninsurance is probably going to skyrocket, maybe by 7 million people, and all of the other sequelae that we know that's going to flow from this. So, I mean, I am, completely on board with a all hands on deck push to push Medicare for all into the mainstream. I think that, I'm skeptical of the idea of any one sort of parliamentary kind of maneuver as being a really important part of that. I think that at some point we need to pass Medicare for all. In the meantime, until we can pass it, we need to do everything we can to get it on the center stage. I think hearings are great. I think national events are important. I'm very worried about the idea of a vote that fails, that it would achieve those goals.
Natalie, what do you think? I can't hear Natalie. Can anyone hear Natalie? You're muted. Natalie, you're muted. Well, okay. In the meantime, Adam, the COVID, real or scamdemic?
It's a curveball.
Just one word answer, please.
Real.
As a doctor. Okay, good. Natalie, what do you think about the whole hullabaloo?
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, I feel fairly similarly. I think that I totally understand and am heartened by people's impulse to do something big, to, go outside of norms. But I think that this particular tactic, I don't think I'm in favor of. I think that it stands to backfire. I think that the political theater and the kayfabe that people think they can get out of forcing a floor vote won't necessarily translate with what will ultimately be a dramatic loss. I mean, you're talking like a 300 to 100 loss in the House, and then
man down.
And then
are you okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Katie asked for the dog, and then I had to put headphones on.
And then be careful what you wish for.
Sorry, that was my fault. But so I don't even necessarily think that it'll have the propaganda value that people are hoping it would have. Forcing a vote basically outside of typical committee rules would, I think, be a really short vote in most cases. You're talking like 15 minutes, a few minutes for debate on either side, which, hands the opposition time to debate too. I don't necessarily think Democrats would take the no side for debate, but I think that Republicans would. And I think that,
the debate.
Yeah, what the reason that we don't have
because Bree and Ben are coming, but sorry.
Okay. The reason that we don't have Medicare for all is, a very obvious reason that the healthcare industry is $3 trillion industry that makes up almost 20% of the U.S. economy, and that it's going to take mass mobilization to have any hope of toppling that. I think that the floor vote tactic and the way that it's been articulated by most people in favor, and I think that Bree definitely made the best argument for it that I'm sure she'll make again on the show, so I'll leave that to her. But the way that it's been articulated by most people, I think, is based on a theory of change that suggests that, having the right individuals in these roles is going to get us Medicare for all. And as soon as we find, officials that aren't corrupt, that's finally what's going to make it happen. And, I think that having progressives and leftists in Congress is better than not having them. I'm, excited about that movement and the progress that it's made. But overall, it's going to take changing the political waters that they operate in, not just making sure that we have perfect people in office. I'd like to see them use their leverage somehow. I don't necessarily think that this is the right tactic, and I don't think it's fair to make it, a litmus test when it's not necessarily something that, movement folks and organizers are even calling for.
Well, I have to admit, I haven't thought about this a whole lot, just because it struck me as like a very inside baseball-y type of thing. And I can't remember an example of something like this.
Well, let's wait.
I would guess I would, like I remember like, they would pass civil rights bills in the House all the time, and then the Senate would just kill them. And this went on for decades in the first part of the 20th century. I don't know. I don't have a particularly strong view of it either way. I just don't know.
Yeah,
it struck me as like a very insidery thing, right?
I mean, I think that the kayfabe worked better for that because they were at least passing and then getting killed in the Senate. Like, this wouldn't even be doing a political performance of passing something. It would be a political performance of losing.
Well, let's wait. I just want to table this because it's like we're gonna have, and this is my fault because I was bringing someone into the chat because I believe in bringing people or creatures to the table like Bodhi, and I wanted to have Bodhi meet.
Okay, well then let's just talk about whether the pandemic is real or not. Doctor, scamdemic. I'm hearing some interesting things on Facebook. A lot of facts out there, dude.
Nando, they haven't. Hold on.
2 sides of every story.
Can you hold on, everyone? Just we didn't introduce Thackeray. That's why.
Because between the dog and the headphones that you made me put on, the dog knocked my thing over, and I have a pretty precarious setup. But
so you can't show him? I'm sorry.
Well, no, I can't. I just have to be careful.
Oh, guys,
here he is.
How cute is he?
Cuddly little guy. That's Bodhi, buddy.
Bodhi, that's Thax. We'll give him a thingy next time.
Any thoughts on these issues, dogs?
Yeah, well, she's.
I bring my.
Cody's a total radical.
I don't have
my pet is Sean Connery in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah,
that's another pet.
But I just wanted to. Okay, I'm gonna put you down for a little boo boo, and then I'll hear you have a platypus to play with. Okay.
I need some sort of.
I know you do.
Yeah, you need a pet.
A totem. I'm gonna I wanted to wait. I wanted to more set the scene, I guess, with you guys because in case oh my God, talk about precarious. I'm about to knock over my entire desk. So Adam, you are a physician. Natalie, you are a writer and researcher, and you guys both are very healthcare focused. And I just want to know if you could talk about the kind of create the larger picture of what is happening in terms of healthcare organizing, also in terms of where we're at in terms of COVID, kind of just set up a landscape. Forget that mixed metaphor.
That's what I've been trying to ask. Is it real or fake?
Yeah, real or fake. Yeah.
All right, Adam, why don't you open?
Sure. I mean, so I think that the many weaknesses and injustices of our healthcare system have obviously been sort of laid bare this year. I was just, saying earlier that every problem you look at in the American healthcare system is getting worse. Every problem, right? So uninsurance, 30 million people uninsured, maybe. It's gone up by probably 2 million over the course of the Trump administration. It might go up by another 5 to 7 million over because of the pandemic and the economic dislocation that it's created. I think that as job losses become real, as savings accounts dwindle, as checking accounts dwindle, the ability of people to afford copays and deductibles, even if they stay the same, is going to decline, and it's going to be people are going to go without needed care. People have also already sacrificed huge amounts of needed healthcare this year, in part because probably they can't afford it, and in part because hospitals have been partially closed. Mental health is rapidly worsening. The number of people with depressive symptoms in one study has skyrocketed from like 9% of the population a couple of years ago up to 28% this year during the pandemic. So health needs are rising. Healthcare access is falling. And this is obviously a recipe for total disaster. And I think the final thing I just want to put out there is what, the response to this pandemic, among many other things, has demonstrated the complete lack of coordination, of planning in our healthcare system. The fact that we're still talking about, lack of PPE and lack of testing supplies at this stage in the game is a total and complete joke. And I think, again, makes the case for the need for a national health program. So I don't know. I think I would just outline those things: worsening healthcare access, worsening health.
All I hear is a bunch of, and you're dodging the question, Natalie. What do you think?
Is COVID real?
I think it's more of a feeling than a thing. Ultimately,
right?
Yeah. No.
Right.
I mean, all of what Adam says is right. What I would.
I thought Adam ruined everything.
Two different guys.
Two different Adams.
That's a
Fun
show.
fact.
Yeah, I used to work for a show called Adam Ruins Everything, and I have a hoodie from it, which sometimes my husband Adam wears to great comedic effect.
And it's always funny. Every time.
It's very funny. That is actually funny.
It's not just because Adam.
How did I never think of that?
I know, I didn't either. The other day. And it's not just because. By the way, it's not just funny because Adam and I come from a very self-deprecating culture in which we really like making fun of ourselves.
It's one reason why it's funny.
It's one reason.
I mean,
and speaking of which, belated Happy Hanukkah to you, my brother. Adam's not Jewish. That's the joke.
Yeah, I know. I think that. I'm happy you pointed that out. I don't want to get canceled for false.
Appropriating Jewish oppression.
The beginning of the end.
I mean, we may or may not have joked about Adam. Adam showed me and my friend a photo of, I believe it was a photo from when you played baseball as a kid.
I mean, it was T-ball. I was 4. I never actually went.
It was what ball? It was what ball?
T-ball.
But you had a card. Like, you had a card. Like,
it was the height of my athletic career. Actually.
The Adam Gaffney rookie card.
Yeah, he had a card. And
you're gonna wish you had one, Nando. All right.
Yeah.
You have to bring it out the next time. But you showed it to us, and you had on full-figured glasses. I'll say thick glasses, And my friend did say it was a bit of my Jewish friend, and I thought it was cultural appropriation because you looked of the nerdy persuasion. Anyway, but yes, go on, Natalie. Sorry, although I'm not sorry. That was a great detour. The Adam ruins everything. I didn't realize it either. Like the Adam. I knew your name was Adam. I knew you worked for Adam ruins everything. I never put it together. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started dating, I would get paranoid that I was accidentally going to text my boss instead of my boyfriend. So I had to be very, very careful about that.
Avoid that.
Avoid that, possibly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one time I did accidentally text Adam Gaffney like something about work.
Right.
Like be right there with the notes.
Yeah, but I never sent anything spicy.
The other way around. Yeah.
Right.
So,
Right.
Dodged a bullet there. But,
Adam, you should have been like me neither.
all I was gonna add is I think that there's an impending crisis with Medicaid programs in the states. States can't take on sovereign debt, and there are going to be a ton of extra Medicaid enrollees in a very short time, and I think that that's going to really strain state budgets. There's going to be like a lot of administrative gluts that people will have to contend with. I think that that's going to be a pretty serious problem for a lot of people relatively soon. I also think that there's going to be a pretty robust organizing efforts for single payer and other healthcare tweaks at the state level over the next couple of years as people kind of figure that they're stymied at the national level, which is another. I mean, I guess I don't want to talk about the floor vote stuff too early, but one of the options on the table is forcing a vote on a Ro Khanna bill that would basically allow for state waivers to facilitate single payer and other programs at the state level. So, that's something that might be around the bend too.
Great. I thought what we could do is we could bring in Bri. Bri can say hi to everyone. We can all talk. Bri can talk about her latest piece, which is excellent at Current Affairs. And then we'll bring in Ben. But again, this is just to have a nice, lively discussion. And the nice thing is that everyone on this panel respects each other.
Everyone sharpen their knives.
No. But let's bring in Briahna, Joy, Gray, Major Reg, Fave, Katie Halper, Show Fave.
Hey everyone, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing very well. How are you all? Adam, I haven't seen you since that one time I met you in real life and you left your apartment, your wallet at my apartment.
Oh yeah. That was my fault.
I was afraid you were going to mention that.
I brought them there. I brought you guys there. Yeah.
He invited every leftist from New York.
I did.
In all fairness, it was New Year's Eve.
It was New Year's Eve. Katie invited every leftist in New York to my apartment. I had no idea who anybody was.
But it was bad.
Wait, what? Did shit get wild? Like, what happened? Adam left his wallet.
I always have house parties, but there was a wallet left, and I looked in it, and it was Adam's. And then we had to rendezvous outside of my office at the Intercept, outside of the Intercept to give it back.
It happened to anyone.
It could have happened to anyone. Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
I think it was like a big pile of
I miss parties.
It was a big pile of coats. Yeah. Bri, I remember you dancing to "Hey, I Want to Dance with Somebody," I believe.
Yeah, that's my song. That's my acapella group solo.
And then you were
that's a good one.
I had video of it, which I took down from the internets because I realized.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah,
I'm a professional now.
Yeah, I think it was. I want to be fair to you and unfair to myself, critical of myself. I put it up, then I was asked to take it down, which I did. It was nothing very incriminating at all, but it was funny because you were dancing, and my friend Greg was there. One of my thousands of friends with me. Greg and his boyfriend Ted were there, and you were dancing and you fell down like on your couch. Nothing.
No, I dropped to my knees purposefully and elegantly.
Okay, that's what it was. Oh, you remember it? Yes.
To dismount the couch.
Yeah, exactly. And then so you leave the scene, and then Greg is like, "Whoops!" And then you come back up like Jesus, and Greg's like, "And she's back." Anyway,
like Jesus,
like being the Jesus that you are. Yeah. So can you tell people about the piece that you wrote, your latest piece, which has been getting so much buzz, that is a very, as is your want, very like legal. I mean,
Bri only writes buzzy pieces. Like,
I know.
I've published a piece and fucking no one gives a fuck.
Well, it's only they're also very I mean, she's a lawyer. She's at Harvard.
Right.
She's at private Harvard spoiled brat lawyer. I love how the same people who will go after you for that stuff are like, we love Mayor Pete.
Yeah,
yes.
They love Obama. They love Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm fine with hating us all, but just, hate us all.
Be consistent. Yeah. Have a standard. Yeah. Have a standard. Yeah.
That's the position I take as like a Boston safety school.
As a struggling artist.
I went to Boston College, which is like a safety school for
You guys have great acapella.
That's true. A lot of white people.
Yeah, a lot of Irish. So, can you, for those of us who haven't read, and it's, of course, it's long, it's good. It's not Robinsonian long. It's good long. Not that there's anything wrong with Nathan Robinson's lengths either, but that's what I meant. Yeah. But can you tell us about the lay out your argument?
Yeah, sure. I think I'll start with the piece that I think is really left out of the conversation, which is this. We have an enormous gulf between what American citizens want from their elected officials with respect to Medicare for all and what those elected officials are willing to offer up. As everyone here on this panel knows, even a Fox News poll said that 72% of Americans support Medicare for all. Almost, 50% approximately goes up and down a little of Republican support Medicare for all. We are in the middle of a global pandemic in which over 14 million people have just lost their health insurance. And we have to start to ask the question, why is it with all of this pressure, which should very naturally lead politicians to want to start running on Medicare for all, they're not doing so? And I think the obvious answer is that there is a multi-million billion-dollar industry geared toward making sure that we stay on a private healthcare system. So the media is obviously complicit in this. It could be that media figures held politicians accountable, that they drew the connection between how much money these individuals were taking from pharmaceutical and private insurance companies. Someone might have flagged the fact that Jim Clyburn takes more money from these industries than anybody else in Congress. And there might be a relationship between that and his support of Joe Biden and the rehabilitation of Joe Biden by the Democratic Party to knock Bernie Sanders out of the race in the 11th inning. But we know that hasn't happened and is unlikely to happen. So when Jamie Dore surfaced this idea, and it naturally caught fire in a really organic way, and galvanized people, made a lot of people on the left feel hopeful, and like there was a fight still to be had that could advance our interest. I thought it was a really good idea, largely because in the absence of any other strategy to force the media to pay attention to that enormous chasm between where Americans are and where their politicians are, I think this is an opportunity that's too good to exploit. And we're not going to have it again. This pandemic is obviously horrible. I think today is like the highest death toll that we've ever had. But if there could be any silver lining out of this, it should be that it has laid bare the vulnerabilities in our healthcare system. Our political leadership has admitted, it has acknowledged that healthcare should be free for COVID sufferers. And there is a real slippery slope between that and acknowledging that healthcare should be free at point of service for all. And you saw how vulnerable they are there when I simply quote tweeted Kamala Harris in the spring saying, free healthcare for COVID is a good start, but what if someone is dying of cancer or diabetes and the entire internet collapsed? They know there's a vulnerability there, and I think this is an amazing opportunity to exploit it, not just because of the pandemic, but also because Nancy Pelosi is someone who is one of the most unpopular politicians in America. Her popularity rating is worse than Trump, and the fact of Nancy Pelosi being the linchpin in all of this is guaranteed to draw a certain amount of media attention, if only from the right, who will relish the idea of her being bent over the proverbial barrel.
Fun.
Yeah. And what are some of the, did you, by the way, like was there an evolution in your thinking on this? Were you like, how did you kind of come to the position you came to?
Well, I am as aware as anyone of how Jimmy Dore is perceived. I've had my own little dust-ups with him in the past. But the thing is, I was listening to the counter arguments and none of them were substantive. I mean, it was all, I don't like Jimmy Dore, which is fine. There's plenty of reasons that people have to feel that way. But I what I'm attuned to, what I used to pay attention to as, a comms person was, what the response was when you're selling certain kinds of things, when you're pitching certain kinds of things. And, I'm not saying I'm some expert. I'm not Bernie Sanders who's been going to rooms and talking to people for 40 years, but I did have experiences on my campaign of feeling what sunk and what landed in terms of a pitch. And when you see a natural groundswell of enthusiasm around an idea, I don't think that one's first instinct should be to poo-poo it or say, this isn't the idea I would have chosen. This isn't the best potential strategy. If there are other positive things to ask for, other useful things to ask for, I think we should make those demands as well. I think that David Sirota is right to have pointed to some of the more wonky things that, the Jimmy Dores and the me's of the world aren't going to come up with. And those things can be used in tandem with the floor vote. But I think that there are particular aspects of the floor vote that you can call them performative, you could call it theater, but I call it effective in galvanizing the kind of grassroots movement that would be necessary to really press this issue home. So yes, as I say in my article, you also would need, and I would hope that the progressive members of Congress, if they were to pursue this option, would reach out and try to galvanize support among labor and other activist groups, including Black Lives Matter, who we all know managed to galvanize millions of people in the street this summer, and who have as part of their platform universal health care.
Right. So Adam and Natalie, what you're both in interesting overlapping roles, right? Where you do organize or identify? Because you're obviously you are advocate. I'm trying to be the Jane McAlevey, use her, mobilize, organize. How do you see yourselves in this? Obviously, you're a healthcare provider, Adam, and you're still part of Physicians for National Health. So, and you're a DSA, you're a DSA, but are you part of the DSA healthcare caucus, Natalie?
No. I'm a rank and file DSA member, and I've done a decent amount of organizing. Particularly, I was in California for the state single payer fight in 2017, 2018. So I did a lot of work around that, and I've done some with national, but not quite as much.
So what are the? I guess not to sound hokey, but I do feel like a lot of these things are things that are not mutually exclusive. And for me, I think a lot of this is using, there's a lot of value in outrage, even if we step back and people are like, oh, actually, this is a better way to do it, or that's a better way to do it. I still think there's value in making this issue something that has a political cost to it. So I'm just curious, I guess, what you guys think of how to move forward with this, with other things, and also how to do it in a way that's not doing the kind of stop throwing a tantrum, kids.
I definitely agree that I think that, the righteous anger that you're talking about is very important and something that's, a central focus of any mass movement. I think that, figuring out how to channel and sustain that, how to build momentum, particularly when political conditions aren't ideally amenable to it, is a really important question that people should debate and talk about. I think that Briahna's case for the floor vote is really compelling. Frankly, more compelling than I'd seen it articulated anywhere else. And I think that it does seem like there are some upsides, but I guess I have to disagree. I don't feel like it is movement based. I think that one of my big problems with it is, and I'd say I really didn't know much, if anything, about Jimmy Dore before this happened. So I wasn't bringing any, preconceived notions or baggage into this. But I do have to say that I was very turned off by the conversation and the way that the debate, and I think, tactical strategic debate is great.
Right.
I don't think that shouldn't happen. But I did feel like there was this immediate insistence that, whether or not you support forcing a floor vote is a litmus test of whether or not you're an actual Medicare for all supporter, which was very top down. This isn't something that is coming from a movement. And I noticed like a pretty significant divergence in a lot of cases between like what organizers and, on the ground movement people were saying about this versus like what Jimmy Dore fans were saying about this. So, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily see it as a mobilizing demand as it stands now. I think that, the propagandistic value
Cheers.
of
we don't get this set of drinks.
Dirty martini, baby. Ooh.
I'm having something very similar, but without the sugar. It's called tequila soda with lime.
Oh, that's your thing. That's your go-to. I'm having more Lambrusco.
That's what I used to drink when I was in my 20s in Miami.
I'm doing a raspberry bubbly.
Oh, nice.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
It's the same thing I have.
Weird. What? Have you ever seen them in the same room together before?
I don't think. I think this is all a ruse.
We're so easily derailed. Natalie, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, Natalie, this is.
No, I was basically done. I think that I think that the propagandistic value that people think there will be in a floor vote, I think will actually be pretty limited, has the potential to backfire, and that we can figure out a way to expose the Democrats who don't support Medicare for all and to push the ball forward on this in ways that are somewhat different.
Can we talk a little bit about what the backfiring looks like? Because I think that's one of the reasons that I don't know that this will work. I don't know that it, I have no idea what the outcome would be. But from my perspective, the downside is so limited that it's almost irresponsible not to do it. So I'd like to, if we can have a conversation about what you anticipate the downside being, because I've heard people say this is going to end the squad's careers. But I don't see anybody in Rashida Tlaib's district or AOC's district stop being in love with these people because they fought for Medicare for all and embarrassed Nancy Pelosi in the process.
Yeah, I mean that's really not an argument that I think is too salient or that I was making. I think that for me the bigger issue is like I think the best version of this, it going without a hitch at all, is pretty much just a blip. To change the rules, to not have it go through committee and have Pelosi bring it out, that tends to be a 15-minute vote with like a little bit of debate on either side. So you'd be giving debate time to the opposition and giving them their stage time for their key fave too. I think that the performative value of forcing a vote that would ultimately be a big loss doesn't necessarily play into the movement's favor. I mean, we're talking about this will fail in the House around 300 to 100 as things stand now, or give or take on. I can't remember what the specific numbers are.
118, right, I believe, co-sponsored at least.
I mean,
and ASU's argument is all the co-sponsors are in fact supportive of the bill and would purportedly all vote for it. Although there's, Jimmy's argument is that a lot of people will performatively co-sponsor a bill knowing that they don't actually have to vote.
Well, they'd probably vote if they know it's going to lose. They'll vote for it.
Yeah, performative co-sponsorship will equate to performative voting as long as nothing's actually passing. I mean,
although
anything, like if you're trying to expose the Democrats who don't support it, the people who are voting for it when they know it won't pass will almost get, a free pass. Like they'll get more cover than they would have otherwise.
Right, but that's just my argument for it being 118 people. But if it's not 118 people, that does then start to make Jimmy's argument that you are exposing people on some level. And I also do think one of the points I make in the article is that votes tend to follow you in a way that I've never seen co-sponsorships follow you. And Joe Biden has to keep defending the crime bill vote. Bernie Sanders has to keep defending the crime bill vote. Bernie Sanders has to keep
unfairly,
but it is what it is. Yeah. The assault rifle vote, and there's a lack of nuance. As we know, there's a very different history to Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders supporting these things, but it gets collapsed in the public sphere in a way that people have to deal with. People have to reckon with. And so
Kamala had to defend the Green New Deal sponsorship or whatever. I remember that.
Yeah, and no one voted for her.
No. In the general election, like in the debates and all that stuff.
Yeah,
like, that was like that was an issue that came up again and again.
That's true.
For her.
That's true. I mean, it's true.
And then she had to like pretend not to support it or whatever. But like, yeah, I mean, it's
sponsorship. And her Medicare for All co-sponsorship.
Yeah, right.
The nice thing about
it was a debate. It was a debate. Sorry, that's my impersonation.
I guess one thing I'd throw in there is just, I mean, I do think that there is, in response to the question of like, what is there to lose, I guess, I do think losing votes, losing referendums sometimes can set movements back sometimes or reveal weaknesses. And so that would be just another thing I'd put out here. I mean, I haven't, to be honest, been very engaged in this debate on this specific issue on Twitter or elsewhere. I did read your article though. But I do think there is something to be said for that, right? That you want to demonstrate strength. You want to demonstrate that you have the capacity to win. And a stinging defeat of the sort that seems, that may be likely even. What does that say about where we stand, and how would that be used? And sort of the rhetorical value of that for the anti-Medicare for all crowd. So I do worry about a premature sort of approach that could get set back. I mean, I agree with Natalie. I think that I did like your piece a lot, and I think it did make a strong version of this argument. But that is my concern. I also just do worry about centering sort of parliamentarism too much in the discussion of what comes next. And I understand it's not either or, and it can be and as you put it. But I do think we should not center those kinds of parliamentary tactics given where we stand now.
So here's how I see it. Here's how I see it being.
By the way, I'm dropping Bodhi back off. Can you keep going? I'll listen to it on my iPhone.
Sure.
Is that okay? All right.
Whereas, I want to give a lot of respect and credit to David Cerruti here, because I think that he really advanced the conversation and adds a lot to it with his article. But the way I see this pitched is Nancy Pelosi can't be Speaker of the House unless she meaningfully commits to the idea of Medicare for all, as 14 million Americans have been kicked off their health insurance. Whereas some of the pay-go and changing the way out, swapping out the Ways and Means chair aspects of it are wonky and parliamentary, although they're substantive and important. The crux of this, and I think this is the inextricable piece of it, is the piece that says, here's this woman that 3/4 of Americans think should step down. We're going to say she absolutely must, unless she gives us the thing that 88% of Democrats and 72% of Americans actually want. I have a really hard time seeing that not be an appealing headline, if not for everyone, if at least for the right, who is obviously very eager to criticize her for reasons that are good reasons and bad reasons. And moreover, I'm really, we don't know what media effect or what the media outcome of this will be, but we have some control over that. And so one of the things that frustrates me about the left sometimes is that I think that in a rush to feel like the adult and very serious person in a room, which I understand because there's so much of what we fight for that we're ridiculed for being juvenile, nerds in our parents' basements who aren't real and all the stuff that they said about Bernie supporters, right? But sometimes I think that we can be rushed to seem like the serious person in the room and say, well, that's unlikely to happen, therefore I think that we shouldn't do it. Whereas if we really were as movement oriented as we claim to be, the question would be, this is going to be hard. What can we do to advance this interest? Who can I get on the phone? What movement leaders do I know? Are people invested in doing this? What are their priorities? What other demands should we be adding in order to get buy-in from other kinds of groups? And I wish, frankly, that we were spending more time as a community having those conversations instead of having all the conversations in the world about all the ways that this is unlikely to come to pass. Because again, this is an organic moment that has sparked interest and fight in a whole group of people who feel so demoralized in the wake of Bernie Sanders. And I would be willing to hear If someone has another moment that they think would be ripe to exploit and advance the Medicare for all argument, I'm all for it. But what I know is that we were in a historic moment in terms of a health crisis and an economic crisis and a health insurance crisis. And I don't see that, hopefully, God willing, I don't see that coming around again just in a predictable way. And also, I don't necessarily see us having any influence in the House in 2 years if trends persist and we actually lose it in 2 years under Joe Biden with his nothing will fundamentally change candidacy.
Yeah. I mean, Adam, do you want to say something?
Well, I mean, so look, I think, I think we agree on we all agree on sort of the big overarching, issues here, right? I mean, everything you just outlined in terms of the issues, the stakes, the crisis, all of these things we're all on board for. And we're all in agreement that we should take every opportunity, I was saying this sort of, I think before you came on, that we should take every opportunity we have to push this into the national stage, to make this an issue, push this into American living rooms, on TV, get the headlines we can. So, I mean, we can sort of talk more about this specific tactic, but I don't know. I don't know how much more there is to get out of it, because I think that the big picture is that I do still continue to worry about what a loss looks like. But I completely agree. We need to use this moment in every way we can to push Medicare for all into the headlines and into the into the discourse.
Do you want to talk through a loss? Sorry, go ahead.
I do want to talk through the loss, because I think I don't have any particular strong opinions on any of this. I honestly, the maneuver struck me as like complex and something that I don't remember anything like this kind of happening in recent history, at least that I could point to. That's how I usually kind of think of things in that way. And I didn't have any particularly strong opinion on it, but I do think that public opinion is kind of a funny thing, and sometimes it's hard to predict how certain phenomena in sort of leadership and in the media or whatever are going to affect public opinion. And, sometimes things become kind of obvious post facto, like something happens in some sort of vote or whatever, and then public opinion flows from that. And some like gay marriage is like a good example of that, where kind of there was all these kind of insidery things happened through the courts, and then it just kind of became law, and then everyone just kind of like, oh yeah, well, of course we support gay marriage, and now it's like it's impossible for public opinion to shift backwards on that. Other times public opinion kind of moves this kind of thing forward, and so I think it's hard to predict how that works. And I think there's always a potential that if there is a loss, it becomes all of a sudden like a big loss. It becomes all of a sudden a cudgel in the opposite direction of what you're talking about with the vote that gets attached to your back. Is like, we voted on this and you lost. Sorry, bye. And then that becomes kind of conventional wisdom. And I don't know that that's going to happen or anything like that. I'm just saying that I could see a world in which that happened.
I just want to say one thing. We're going to bring in Ben Burgis, but I want to say just one thing, because I tend to agree a lot with I don't even want to call it Bree's position. I don't want to call it Jimmy's position. Like, I want to call it Medicare forced, the Medicare non-affirmative consent position. But no, I mean, seriously, I do I want to
You're participating in rape culture.
I know, I'm perpetuating, yeah. No, but what I would say for real is that, like, I do think we are very timid often. And I think that what we do have with this moment is we have a real ability to frame it so that if we know it's not going to pass, right? We go in there and we say, this is what we're doing. We are going to show that this is going to be, and, imagine the speakers who could speak on this. 20 years ago, 10 years, whatever, they always said this wouldn't pass, and it was voted, and we lost, and we had to keep fighting. But this is going to be a moment. And I think that we can frame it that way so that it doesn't feed into the loser narrative. Because it's true, of course. Like, it's easy to take the wind out of the sails of a movement when you have like a built-in non-victory. I do though think that there's a lot of like things in our favor. I mean, like, don't thank God for small things, like the pandemic, the fact that Biden is not doing jack shit and won't do jack shit. And honestly, if we need to take this moment to like siphon away from him to show people what not to do, because I mean, look, not to sound like reckless, but like we're not winning. And again, like if other people have a plan, they're like, do this instead of that. Like I'm open to it, and I'm very happy.
Plan, not just negging.
Yeah, not just negging. And again, I'm not like talking shit on people for negging. It's not like my way or the highway at all.
That's how I pick up chicks.
Negging, yeah. But I also think honestly, even if this is messy and counterproductive, like on some levels, like I think that there's value in scaring. I think there's value in scaring politicians, like into like they have to be on there, even if it backfires. Like this should be an issue that's toxic to come down on the wrong side of. And I do think that, you keep hearing, and this is not your guys' argument at all, but you libs love saying like, it's not even going to pass anyway. What's the point? It's like, no, we actually have in some ways, we have like a freedom in that, given that it won't pass, we can like frame it how we want. Anyway, let me
bring briefly to Nata's point directly though.
Yeah, and now
I'd like to point out that 120 odd Republicans just voted to throw out all of the ballots and declare Donald Trump president, and there will be absolutely no consequences for that. All of the liberal media outlets celebrated, Mitch McConnell for saying that Joe Biden was the next president. We're all going to move on. No one's going to be prosecuted for anything under the Trump administration. There are going to be absolutely no consequences. So Republicans go balls to the wall all the time and burn the house down, and they understand that political memory is short, and that these things are what you make of them. And during the campaign, I frankly wish that sometimes Bernie Sanders would understand that the media wasn't going to be on his side and use theater. Get a bunch of uninsured people. That powerful woman, video of that woman whose kid, she had to go to Canada to get her kid diabetes medicine because she couldn't afford it, and the kid almost died. She's standing there crying on the border. Those kind of stunts demand attention at a certain point. And maybe it won't work, but we know what the media is. We are not going to get any accountability out of the media or our elected officials on this issue. So we can wait. But I don't think it's going to change. The polls are already on our side. Everything's on our side. So what are we waiting for circumstantially to change before we push and force people to recognize that there is this gulf between what people want and what our elected officials are willing to offer?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. That the media is beyond hope and whatever. Which is I think to me an argument that some sort of parliamentary maneuver within the halls of Congress is the exact wrong way to do it, because that's going to be hyper controlled by the media. Something like I don't know. For example, some stunty thing like every single uninsured person in Washington, D.C. just camping out outside. That is a stunty thing.
No, but we do that too. That's
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure that's
part of this argument that I made that I really wish people wouldn't breeze over. That labor has to be involved. Activist groups have to be involved. But what we see is, I think Natalie made this point earlier, you don't know which way it's going to galvanize which. Sometimes something that happens in the halls of Congress galvanizes the people to act. Sometimes something that's grassroots, like the George Floyd shooting, galvanizes the public to act. But what we know is that this is a moment that could be potentially exploited. And with such limited downsides, the only argument I'm making is it is negligent to not exploit an opportunity to embarrass one of the most reviled elected politicians in the country, who shouldn't be in office anyway, and demand something of her in this moment. And I don't think it's just procedurally, it's being described as parliamentary. I think if you say, yeah, we want to get Richard Neal out of the Ways and Means Commission, that feels parliamentary. I think if you say Nancy Pelosi doesn't get to be speaker again unless she makes Congress seriously consider Medicare for all, as millions of people, as hundreds of thousands of people are dying and millions of people are kicked off their health insurance, that stops being procedural. That starts being a matter of the heart. And I think Americans understand the difference.
And on that note, speaking of the heart and the brain, we're putting it all together with Ben Burgis, host of Give Him an Argument.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What up, Ben?
Wanted to know your thoughts on this. Yeah, I want Richie Neal's head on a pike, but we can figure out how to do that organically and make that part of the movement also. I mean, the metaphorical pike, yeah.
I mean,
no liability shield.
Yeah, Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo, right here. I need some of that liability. Yeah. Liability shield, immunity. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that certainly if I thought that this was going to do anything at all to advance Medicare for all, then absolutely, of course, right? Like, I mean, it couldn't be more urgent. I absolutely agree that that if there was something we could do here that would really advance it, we shouldn't wait for it. I'm not convinced that it would. I certainly don't think that it would in the ways that Jimmy Dore seems to think so. I mean, I heard Natalie, I think, make this point earlier that that he thinks that it would take away the cover of Democrats who are co-sponsoring but might not really support it. I think exactly the opposite is true. It would give them more cover because they would be on record as having voted for it. I think that co-sponsorship does follow people around. Like, I think if Bernie Sanders had co-sponsored the crime bill, that would have been a much bigger problem in the primary actually than him just having voted for
the Violence Against Women's Act part of it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I do think it's pretty parliamentary, honestly. Like, the problem is if there was some way to force Congress to seriously consider it, then I'd be all for that. But this wouldn't be forcing Congress to seriously consider it. The majority of Congress is already on record as opposing it. This would just be forcing them to hold a vote to make that official. And I guess maybe there's something that doing that vote would do. I guess it's possible. I do tend to think that I think I'm less optimistic than Katie is about our ability to control the narrative right now. I think that probably to the very limited extent that would get covered, which honestly I don't think is very much, because I do agree with the point that I saw Ryan Gribb make that votes that like the House voting to legalize marijuana or decriminalize it is a big deal because it's the House voting to do it. If a vote was held on something that never had any chance of passing the House and nobody ever thought had any chance of passing the House, I guess I don't believe that would get a lot of coverage. But to the very limited extent that it did get coverage, I suspect that it might be coverage that didn't look good for us.
God forbid there'd be some negative coverage about Medicare for all. What would we do if that happened?
Well, sure, of course, but like the point is just that if the benefit is supposed to be the media coverage, if that's like all we're getting out of it is the media coverage, then it seems like if the media coverage is negative, then I don't really get the argument. I don't really get.
What if it's positive? Because the downsides are relatively low, and we have in our power right now to be having a conversation about how to maximize positive coverage. How do we get a line full of little boys on insulin to testify in front of Congress? If there's limited hearing time, to Natalie's point, how do we extend it into the public sphere? How do we weaponize all of these famous people and surrogates that came out for Bernie to draw public attention to this issue? All of the creatives and video editors who are on the left, how do we get them to produce content to make a real spectacle out of this? This is what we could do if we were interested as a group, as a movement, and committing to something that has a congressional legislative component and an activist component, if we decide to do it. And my fundamental question is, if we choose not to, when do you plan to make the move that advances the goals of Medicare for all? Because right now, the numbers are on our side, and the political moment in terms of this pandemic are on our side. So if there's a case to be made for why we do it in June of next year, or June of 2022, or December of 2023,
I don't think that's the issue.
What's the issue?
I don't think the issue is everybody thinks that this is a great thing that will advance Medicare for all. So do we do it now or do we do it in June? I think the issue is this a great thing that would advance Medicare for all?
No, that's not the question though. The question is, if there are limited downsides, then why not try it now when there are such obvious benefits to doing it now and no foreseeable benefits to doing it in any perceivable future?
I think the disagreement is whether there are any obvious benefits to doing
that.
I
just enumerated them. The fact that we're in the middle of a global pandemic where 14 million people have just been kicked off their health insurance, the fact that the Democratic Party has acknowledged that healthcare should be free for all COVID victims, and it's an obvious slippery slope to how are they going to delineate? Oh, yes, we think that you should get, it's inhumane not to be treated if you get COVID, but not inhumane if you get sick from cancer or diabetes. This is already an issue that they're very clearly vulnerable over. Why not exploit it? And why not exploit the fact that Nancy Pelosi is so reviled that it would demand media attention, at very least from right-wing outlets who are not going to let this issue drop?
I think that we should be exploiting all of the factors that you just mentioned. The question is whether this actually accomplishes that or not. And it seems like what you're laying out are a bunch of things other than this that we could do. And sure, right, we could do both. Fair enough. But it is both, because if we're getting 15 minutes of discussion about it, before a vote that is not going to get very much media coverage, and what very little it gets is going to be focused on how it was such a loser that it was overwhelmingly voted down, then all the other stuff, all the stuff with the creative types, all the stuff with the line of kids, with the insulin, all of that stuff is just a different thing that's also going on.
No, it's in tandem.
That's not even all that tied into it.
It's tied in, and it's a crucial part of the argument. I wanted to make sure to emphasize that in the article as well. You can't, so often, here's my frustration. So often the left likes to say, well, it has to be a leaderless movement, and things come from the bottom up, not the top down, and all of this. But none of us are at the top, and none of us are really movement actors. And we could be movement actors. We could be participating. We could be putting affirmative ideas out into the world and trying things. And sometimes we're going to fail. But all I ever hear is leftists saying, no, we can't do this without offering a viable alternative. And God forbid someone tries something.
Well,
God
forbid. Just for the record, I don't believe in leaderless movement.
A great alternative, and you're saying yes and, but the whole question is, should it be yes and, or should it just be what Nando just suggested? Because if in fact, like, there's nothing in particular we get out of this, and how it plays out, like there are good reasons to think is mostly going to be negative, then why not just do the other thing?
But let's like drill. Sorry,
why present anybody not signing on to this strategy as if it were prima facie evidence of being a sellout or a hypocrite, which is what
this is the thing. This is why I want to make this a just force Medicare for all vote, and take out the Jimmy thing, and take out the Briahna Joy Gray thing. Not that there's anything wrong, all praise be. I'm just saying that to make it as depersonalized a thing, because I think there's actually a very tricky and interesting thing here, right? Which is that there is a power of personalities to bring things up, right? Make them popular. And of course, a lot of people find Jimmy Dore cantankerous, alienating, right? All that stuff. But like, this thing has been brought up, and look, obviously someone could bring up an idea and people are excited about it, but the negatives so far outweigh it that you're like, well, whatever. I guess I think that like looking at this because it's not like, but for doing this, we have smooth sailing and we have a plan. And I do actually think like enumerating the negatives is almost better than like the negatives that won't happen or that aren't already happening. Because I don't like, again, it's the vote not working. Because if you're just going to say like it's not to our advantage, then why not let people try it? I don't see the irrevocable damage and the uncontrollable damage it would do. And I also, and I think that there's sometimes you just have to kind of meet people where they are. And this is a messy thing. And I don't know.
If I could just say one thing, I mean, because I don't know how productive a lot of debate on this one thing is going to be. The reality is I don't have any particularly strong feeling on any one particular tactic, because I think that any one particular tactic is not really the end all be all of this. This is a marathon, not a sprint. The Medicare for All movement has been going on for a long time. It has, in fact, made enormous progress, even though the end goal is very far away. But this is an issue that when I first started getting involved in it was very much a fringe position. It was a position that was on the sort of outside of the discussion. And over the last 4-6 years has in fact made great progress. And some of that was, definitely a huge part pushed forward by the two Sanders campaigns, but is also, activists taking every opportunity to push this issue forward, every opportunity in ways big and small. So I guess the only thing I want to say is I just think spending a lot of time saying, should we hinge all of these efforts on this one particular parliamentary tactic, whether it's a good idea or bad idea, I think that's mistaken, because I think this is going to require month after month, year after year of sustained, committed activism along all the lines that people are saying. And I think hinging it on one big explosive moment is a mistake, particularly if the outcome of that one big particular moment is uncertain. If we knew this was happening, we'd want to use it to the advantage to the maximum extent possible. But we don't know what's happening, and I think it's a mistake to sort of center too much attention on it.
Well, why do you say hinging it and centering attention? It's only contentious because there are people who are in opposition, but it's just something we could do, and then we move on to the next. So that feels a little bit, I don't want to, I'm not trying to be combative, a little bit like a straw man. It's one of many tools, and what does Pelosi say? It's one of many quivers in our
that we won't use.
Arrows in the quiver. The quiver is the thing,
and so let's
the arrow you shoot.
Let's let one fly.
That's all let it rip. Let it rip. He's not a GI. He's not a GI doctor, but he'll talk about that. Well, one other thing that I just want to say about, with the sellout stuff, that obviously is not something that is in like Briahna's vernacular on this. It is definitely on Jimmy's, and I have to be totally transparent. Like, as someone who has had like AOC on my show, I would love. Rashida Tlaib was on Useful Idiots. I would love to have her on. I've had Cori Bush on and want to have her on again. I want to have Ilhan Omar on. Like, I want to just be transparent and say I have a visceral discomfort with some of the language used by some people. But you know what? I'm also like, wait a second, like that we need. Sorry, but like writ large, kind of like they can't just count on the civility politics of the left. I mean, look, there are destructive, toxic discourse politics, but it also is like. Look, what's the FDR quote? Make me do it, right? Like, I think we also have to get kind of get over that stuff too, and be like, and not providing cover. I mean, I understand it because like, it's not about vilifying them, and there are going to be people who vilify them, and it's unprofessional and it's uncouth, and also like we have to kind of. Say, well, that's how we're doing it. But ultimately, I also think that's kind of a distraction. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree, because you alienate a lot of people. Because, AOC is going to do something great next month. That's really helpful for the movement. And, she should get credit for that. Don't throw the baby. I just got off Jimmy Dore's show, and I don't think you should throw the baby out with the bathwater. I told him that as well. But what AOC did say while she was campaigning for Congress was, please hold me accountable. There is institutional creep. Jimmy might think that she, is kind of like tarnished or like corrupted. My view is that it's less about like her personal ethos of what she's trying to do or not try to do, and more about the fact that as longer you're in an institution, the more you used to feel like, oh, well, if I did get another term, here are the kinds of things I could do over the longer term. Here is the incremental progress I can make. And that feels real. And it is real. And it may even be meaningful. But that's a very different person than the AOC who said, I am happy to be a one-term congresswoman if it means I fight for things and I put stuff on the map. And she asked us, F1 AOC asked us to hold her accountable. And I think that's what Jimmy's doing. And I think that there's value in that.
I mean, I think that, no politician is above criticism, obviously. They're
except
not
for Bernie
Sanders. Yeah, come on. Except for Bernie.
I'm a Bernie, Theo Bernie. Yeah.
But they're not our saviors. They're not our friends. They are there to get us things that we want, and they respond to certain incentives. And the hope is to get enough of the left-leaning progressive Congress people, hopefully at some point senators, when we have the power to be able to do that. We want them in there because they respond to mass movements and the sort of things the sort of power that we are able to exact over them and their peers. So all of that's good. But I almost feel like I don't know the way that a lot of the like Jimmy Dore adjacent people have been talking about us this week. I don't think that they understand. Like that doesn't sound like their theory of change to me. I mean, when I when he's talking like AOC, if you're for real, then you'll do this. That to me sounds like, okay, either she's the real deal, or we have to get rid of all of these hopelessly corrupt people and replace them with good people. And that's not how I want to be thinking about politicians and elected officials.
Look, it's not my bag either, but I think that there is some value in there being some Jimmy Dores out there. Look, it's the Malcolm X, Martin Luther King strategy. And I said this to Jimmy. You can be out there with vinegar, and I'll be out here with a somewhat more honeyed approach, although plenty of people think I'm bombastic and hate my guts also. And then there are people much nicer than me. Arguably, that's AOC, who everybody loves, right?
I'm not talking about being nice. I'm talking about seeing political changes as a function of, how good of people individual politicians are. That's not how it happens.
Well, I don't know that he would describe that as his theory of change. But I do think that there is some danger in the unwillingness of folks on the left, myself included, to be kind of sharply critical of AOC. I mean, look, I love Jeremy Scahill. He's a former colleague of mine. I think he's brilliant and does amazing work. But I listened to the interview this morning, the interview he did with AOC this morning, and I thought to myself, he didn't press her very hard. It felt like an opportunity for her to rehabilitate herself. And look, that's fair. The Intercept and AOC have a relationship that I valued and appreciated, and there was access, and it was great. But, somebody, if it's not the Intercept, that's fine, but somebody has to be willing to, I think, put a little bit of a hot iron to these folks if we want the best out of them. And it's uncomfortable, and I don't know that I want to do it, because when you do that, you alienate people. And Jimmy, there are people who aren't going to want to listen to Jimmy because of what he said. And part of why I wanted to write the article is because I know that Jimmy is toxic to some folks, but maybe if I reframe the argument, I can get through to people who don't want to listen just because it's Jimmy. Right. And there's someone who can even reframe my argument to people who don't want to listen because it's me. And I think that's the role we should be playing right now. I don't know why there's so much, emphasis, so much time being spent with why do this when the downsides are so limited and there's no alternative plan being suggested.
And I also would just say one thing quickly, then I'll pass it to you, Ben, okay? Which is that I think that like the theory of change of some of Jimmy and Jimmy's followers is not like, that's kind of this. I don't see this as like a teachable moment in theories of change. Like, I think that would be a luxury if we had that opportunity. I feel like there's potential for other stuff. And yeah. I mean, I don't think that should like validate or invalidate necessarily.
It seems like something. I don't know. I mean, I guess I think it should be a teachable moment, because I think it's a really important point, and something that, like, in the long run, is going to be like one of the most important lessons the left can possibly learn. That this kind of voluntarist theory of the world that the
can you define that term? Because I know I've seen not everyone knows the philosophy.
Oh yeah. So voluntarism is just the idea that, like, the reason we don't have good political outcomes are the people who are fighting for them, like, don't want them bad enough. That it's just a matter of insufficient will or insufficient mettle. And that seems totally wrong. And not only is it like wrong, but I think it's a really unhelpful way to see the world. That rather than seeing like things in terms of balance of power and like organizing that needs to be done. I think if you tell people that we would be getting the things that we wanted if only AOC or whoever was committed enough or had a good good
I don't think anybody's a voluntarist. Like, I think
Jimmy Dore is 110% voluntarist.
Jimmy Dore isn't saying that AOC needs to want it enough. Jimmy Dore is saying that AOC has been institutionally corrupted, and for whatever reason, it's a black box. For whatever reason, AOC has offered up some really transparently weak excuses for why she doesn't want to do this. Maybe there's good reasons for her not to want to do this, and maybe she is working on stuff in the wings. And I said this to Jimmy. I'm open to that possibility. But what she said to Justin Jackson on Twitter, a conversation she did not need to engage in, and we wouldn't be talking about her unless she had put herself in that position. We're not talking about the rest of the squad. We're talking about AOC, because she jumped in that Twitter discussion and put herself in that in line of fire. What she said was, well, wouldn't it be better to ask for other things like a $15 minimum wage? A $15 minimum wage, like what's already in the platform, like what Joe Biden ran on and what every Democrat supports? How is that an effective method of change? How is that an effective way to use your leverage? And what Jimmy is saying is he reads into that her argument against doing this was made in bad faith. And I don't know that I would go that far, but I think he has a pretty reasonable argument on his hands. And so his thing is to say, well, let me push her into at least giving a good faith response. Let me not take what she's telling me as her rationale for granted.
Well,
and I think it would be irresponsible
for that, right? I mean, he's saying more than that. He's saying if she's for real, she will do.
Sure, but let's yeah.
I think it's very important to distinguish two. I'm not familiar with Jimmy Dore or his work.
You're not a Dorian.
I guess not. So I can't comment on that. But I mean, I think there's two different things. One is, I mean, look, we do need an independent Medicare for all movement from politicians, right? This is that is how political change happens. The politicians need to follow the movement, and not vice versa. And so that's true. I just think that's a separate question than sort of how we sort of discuss one particular proposed tactic. That's
right. I mean, but I think that's a really important point. I also think that who cares about how Jimmy Dore sees this?
He's not even part of this conversation.
Because whether or not we think
started it.
Yeah, he started it, and of course
we're having a conversation. And I'm making an argument, and it seems sometimes it feels, if I can be honest, like the only real response is Jimmy Dore is unpalatable.
No, I mean,
Jimmy Dore is
no one said that.
I think it's like a lot. I don't even know the guy. No, but here's what I will say. I agree with I disagree with what voluntarist view of politicians, but it's also kind of irrelevant, right? Because whether or not it's somewhat, it's like I'm always thinking this about people. Like my entire life, I feel like is spent 50% of it thinking dumb or disingenuous. I think that all the time about people, and to some extent that does make a difference, right? Because like Brie, we talk about this a lot. The what is the means end tested thing? How there are. Or being too radical. There are good faith people who really think that if you demand too much, you will be shooting yourself in the foot. That this is not how you make change. You achieve things. That you have to be a moderate. That's how you make change. That's how you improve things. Or there are people who hear why should I be paying for rich people's college education? That's why and those people are different from the total cynical, disgusting people out there who know better.
Sure.
Yeah. So there's sometimes where intention and perspective is relevant, right? But there are other times where it's whether or not you think it's because AOC is, and I'll be honest, I don't think from my perspective, my audience, I don't think it's particularly helpful to frame it as, she's a sellout or not a sellout. Yeah. But I will say that to some extent that's a moot point, right? Because it's whether or not it's out of political pressure or a goodness in the soul, any of that. There is, going back to what you said, Adam, there is value in having an independent movement because honestly, again, I'm just going to be it's hard for me. I can't push people. It's very hard for me to push people on my show. I bend over backwards. And look, the irony is I'll do that with Jimmy too. Sometimes I'm afraid to disagree with him. I'm just being totally real. This is what you guys get on the Patreon, but I'm without paying Patreon. But by the way, everyone should like the stream right now and become $1 a month. Come on, if everyone watching became $1 a month patrons, would be a great thing. And then I'll buy everyone Medicare for all. Just kidding. But I think all that stuff is true. I think all that stuff is true. I really do think that there needs to be a radical flank politically and almost behaviorally. And I don't know. I
think I would love to see the energy that was sparked by this conversation for people who really were excited by it, whether or not a floor vote happens. I want to see those people engaged in direct action somehow.
Right. But how do we?
That would be the,
That's that's where we always end up, though.
Well,
wouldn't it be great? I try to have union leaders and stuff like that on bad faith, but even when we do, to be honest, we had an amazing conversation with Sarah Nelson, head of the flight attendants union. And I'm like, okay, we're going to do a general strike. What are the conditions that we need to have that? What's going on? What are the conversations happening? You're telling me you have all of these disappointments. If you guys were to start it, the whole world stops. If the planes don't fly, everything ends. What's going on? And they're not that forthcoming. She was great. I don't mean that as a criticism, but like at the end of the day, no one is that forthcoming. So we end up having these circular conversations where we all agree movements have to be grassroots and it's got to be organic. And it's like but either we go outside, put our masks on, and start knocking doors. Like right now, in this conversation is irrelevant. Or I know that I'm a comms person. I'm not an organizer. I don't pretend to be. What I can do is offer up what I think is a nugget that will help spark people to want to come outside and knock doors the same way that Bernie's campaign drove the largest door knocking effort in American history and the largest number of campaign donations from individual donors in American history, because he had ideas that sparked people to want to act. And I don't think we should be dismissive of the potency of this idea that literally made Jimmy Dore trend for an entire day earlier this week out of nowhere, because people were just so excited about the idea of a big public fight involving a reviled woman who has held the entire Democratic Party in a vice grip for 30 years as people are dying in the streets. That's an opportunity. I don't know what a bigger opportunity could be if it smacked us all in the face.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the floor vote is necessarily the way to meet that opportunity. I think all of what you're saying is right. People are excited about a fight, and people are wanting to be mobilized, and there are ways that they should mobilize, and it is ambiguous and it is slow because this work is slow. Like I don't know how to make like organize and map mobilize. No, like you can't make it faster.
But this is a moment where people, without us trying, said, "Hey, I like this. I'm interested. Where should I go? What should I do? I want to be involved." And our response is to say, "Well, I don't know if this is the best strategic option." And all I'm saying is, I wouldn't have picked this. I didn't come up with it, but I feel like I'm keen enough to understand that there is energy around this. And we should exploit it. That's all I'm saying. There is obvious energy around this. You don't get to choose all your moments. Rosa Parks, there was a woman, obviously everyone knows the story, but there was like a teen mom woman who was actually kicked off her bus seat. And the NAACP said, I don't know about that for optics. Let's stage it again with Rosa Parks as a respectable citizen. Sometimes you get to do that sort of thing. But for the most part, life just happens. And this isn't, all I'm saying is, and I don't want to minimize the extent to which the Pelosi aspect of this is a real strategic boom. It's not, you can say, let's do it without Pelosi. Let's just have marches and parades. Okay. But this galvanized folks, and it forced AOC to come to the table in a way that none of our other, oh my gosh, Medicare for all tweets, which I've been incessantly tweeting for the last 9 months of my unemployed life, have resonated. And all I'm saying is, given the very limited downsides, why not see how far we can ride this wave?
Yeah, I think that I think that something that's difficult is like I think that like we can either say there are people who want this, right? And like we can think it's the most strategic or not this most strategic thing, but like to me, the real thing is like saying like, okay, this is what people want to do, and here's how we can kind of finesse it, or here's what we can do to maximize it. Because I don't think it's a zero-sum game. I don't think people who are excited about this are organizers. And there's some I see in the chats that I see in the chat. Fine, I'll let people respond. But I feel like I've been trying to be a fucking social lubricant. Thank you very much. Why do I respond to this? Let people respond. Fine, go ahead. Fine. Everyone should feel as uncomfortable as possible. Yeah, go. Sorry. What you guys don't even need me here. Yeah.
Well, look. I mean, if the question is like while Katie's being silent, if the question is like, should something be done about Medicare for all that exploits Nancy Pelosi being incredibly unpopular, then I think the idea that Nando gave earlier is clearly one of them, right? Do look, you could have that, you could have all of those all of those sit-ins. You could have the line of people that Brie mentioned with the insulin lining up in front of Nancy Pelosi's office, and all of that would make perfect sense to me. And that seems like a tactic that would make sense. And if this tactic doesn't really make sense because it wouldn't do what it's supposed to do, right? It wouldn't actually, or at least what it's originally advertised about. And I know we're not supposed to mention Jimmy Dore's name, but Brie, in your article, right, you said that this would reveal people who weren't really supporting it, so we would know who to primary. if it's not going to do that, and it's most likely going to lead to some brief negative news coverage, and that's about it.
Sorry. That was just a pun. That was just a very stupid pun.
I got it. I got it.
I know, but Ben did it.
I got it. I don't know if all these idiots got it.
Yeah, the riffraff.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Wait, no, Ben. Sorry, just because I keep Ben and then Adam. See, you guys happy?
Okay, fair enough. So
that was not you. Those are my supporters. Yeah.
Yeah. So if this is like, if the idea is just, hey, like this situation is urgent, we need to do something, this is something, then okay, I guess. I mean, I think that there are other things that would make sense, but probably this wouldn't be too bad. But like, then if the question is, do we think that not doing this specific thing is a big problem, or that that AOC, is institutionally compromised, if she's not doing this specific thing or anything like that, that makes a lot less sense to me. But Adam, please.
I just, what I want to say is, the one part of this conversation that bothers me a little bit is the idea that there's sort of a choice between doing something and this is it, and sort of not doing something, right? We are doing something. Yes. We have to do something. We want to
Yes, and
I think, Bree, to your point, that, like, we can't necessarily choose our moments. I totally agree. We can't. We have to exploit the moments that come our way. This isn't coming our way as of now, and I suppose if it's happening, then the conversation can happen about how to bring the most publicity to Medicare for all, in spite of it. But the reality is, we don't know what moments we're going to be coming in 2021. We want to be ready to seize each and every one of them. We want to grow this as a movement, knowing that 2021 is probably not going to be the year that Medicare for all is passed, unfortunately. Let's not put all of our sort of eggs in one tactical basket. I guess is what I'd say.
Actually, Adam, it's over. I really thought you would know that. Wow, you're a medical.
Called out. Rough. Yes, the tactical basket. Anyway.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only response to that, Adam, is that it's not a mutually exclusive thing. So I don't think we're putting all our eggs in one tactical basket to do a single tactical thing among many over.
Yeah. By the way,
well, I guess whoa.
What's that?
I hear the echo.
Huh?
It's like we're in an
we're in and
we're
over.
done. Okay, I exhausted.
Yeah, no, I liked it. No, there are a lot of more over where that came from. I don't even know. Yeah. Echo bad. You guys are echo.
I guess.
Wow.
Is it still echoing?
Hold on, let's see.
I think it's good.
I think we're good now. Yeah.
Well, I guess I have two questions, because one, I don't ascribe to the idea that the left should be like a leaderless thing. I think we've tried that in the past, and it just always leads to this, I don't know, like chaos and no real kind of strategic thinking and all that stuff. And so I don't ascribe to that. So one thing, well, it's like, like Occupy stuff, like so like, I guess one thing would be like, what are the people, like, what are the organizations, like, PN, what's your former organization, like, thinking about this kind of thing? What's like the DSA, Medicare for All caucus thinking about this kind of thing? Like the organizations that I'm like more of a Stalinist in that sense, that I'll like, I'm more willing to take those kind of cues. And I genuinely don't know what they are saying about any of this stuff. And then the other question I would have, because I generally don't know the answer either, is what's an example of something like this tactic having worked in the past? And I genuinely don't know the answer.
I got one for you, because people have been adding them at me ever since my article came out.
Fun.
The one big one that I remember is suffrage, where women's suffrage was brought to a vote in like 1918. It failed, but it did in fact galvanize a huge movement, exposed a lot of people, and women's suffrage passed the following year.
Yes, yeah. Apparently, also apartheid sanctions, which they get an out, because sanctions are usually not good, but apartheid sanctions, we like them because they were called for by the people there, as opposed to like the normal imperialist shit that we do. That's another example. I have actually been.
Amanda, by the way, this has been a really fun conversation, and Katie, God bless you, have the best panels on the internet. But an idea would be to get actually someone from BLM leadership, DSA leadership, partnership for. I'm sorry, the acronym always kills me. But your organization, Adam, PNPH, some stakeholders, someone from a nurses union, someone from a labor union, get them all in a room and say, well, what can we do activist wise? What kind of spectacle can we generate? How invested are you in this, or might you be in this? And we were all willing to come together. Civil rights movement didn't just happen. There were tent cities outside of the Capitol, right? Like, we forget the sustained and, kind of spectacular nature of what the protests really were, which isn't just like a dog that bit some people one time by a fire hose. Like, people put on stunts. Rosa Parks was a stunt. These are stunts.
And very trained and coordinated. Went to the Highlander School. Was not like someone who decided one day to be tired. Yeah.
Right. The lunch counter sitters were trained. Yeah, the lunch counter sitters, they sat there and they were like, this is what it's going to be. I'm going to pour food on you and spit at you, and we're going to make you practice not reacting. Like, I just feel like we're all like, we're East Coast, West Coast, California liberals and all this stuff, and we don't even engage in a little bit of theater. My God, I was in an acapella group.
Don't insult me like that.
I know.
My
Liberals,
goodness.
come on. Bread and puppet, okay. Bread and puppet, but leftists besides that, yeah.
I am a coastal person. I'm from Miami, but I am no lib. Come on. Oh.
But by the way, someone I think Jessica has commented a couple of times. She's offended that makes it sound like I'm criticizing her, but she feels like she's being left out as the single payer organizer. So I wanted to ask her, feel free please to comment. Who? Jessica, someone in the chat, Jessica. Is saying that she feels left out of the conversation. She feels like single payer people aren't being asked or invited into the conversation. So what I would like to do is, as a portal, as a whatever, tell us what you would like to get out there. I mean, not to sound, let's spread the message. What is it that single payer organizers, like, not to put you on the spot, but are there any things in particular that you want to make sure we know about, we talk about, you feel like needs to be put into the conversation? Yeah. And then someone said something about it being, let's anyone else also want to make sure that something, also, let me just read some screenshots too. Not screenshots, sorry, some chats that I screenshot. And Brad has also been helping me with those. Let's see. Okay. So one point that I already highlighted on the screen was, 1 second. What a good looking panel we have, by the way. Just was looking at screenshots. Yes. I took one. Yes. So Nando's like, I approve of that message. So Sean.
Well, yes. Well, Adam's looking good. Ben's looking everyone's looking beautiful. Natalie, you're looking great. Everyone's looking hot.
What are you reading right now?
Oh, do you see how there are comments in the YouTube or in the screen? So we're all in StreamYard. When are you gonna?
I see them.
All right. So someone wrote that Sean White. Sean said this also said. Okay, there's echo again. No, I'm not calling out anyone or shaming anyone. But if you know it's you,
is your YouTube muted?
My YouTube isn't open. But what I think it is maybe if it's any of you, just give me a message so you don't have to be ashamed. Message me in the private message and I'll mute you so we don't hear a thing. Okay. So here's the. Okay. Sean White says, this also gives us the benefit of forcing Republicans to vote against it during a pandemic so we can use it against them in the midterms. Hard to agree.
Can I ask a question about that? Because I don't understand that argument, because if the how is it going to be used against the Republicans any more than the fact that the Republicans are right now shouting from the rooftops that they don't support Medicare for all, that they oppose it? I mean, this was a big, like one of Trump's big tactics in the election was a stupid tactic, because it's so popular. But but he was like constantly accusing Biden of secretly supporting Medicare for all. I don't think the Republicans are hiding their opposition to it.
Right, and socialized medicine. But part of the reason that the left can't respond and say you're all a bunch of ghouls who are letting people drop dead is because people like Biden and Buttigieg, Medicare for all who want it, and Jim. There's no one more progressive than Jim Clyburn, right? Are in the pocket of, not to sound whatever, but they're not friends of Medicare for all. So
not to sound like what?
I don't. Oh, like some
like
no,
Like a
not to sound like
socialist.
no, like some over the top, like in the pocket of blah 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 blah. Like whatever. But like, oh no, I'm fine. I Bernie, I identify whenever I can. No, but more like
that's your sexual. It's your sexual identity.
Yeah, Bernie flexual. Yeah. No, but like I actually think that's an important point, Ben. And I think that the thing that excites me about this idea is that like the more we can shift the Overton window, the Rick Overton window, as we call it, the more that thing becomes like a definable. What's that clicking? Not that I don't like. Oh, it's the can. I like that was like spoons, Natalie. You're like,
I'm sorry.
Sound like no, don't worry about it.
I didn't know. I
do too. Don't worry.
Okay.
It's always so awkward, by the way. Can we just pause this for a second? It's so awkward when someone is doing something and you want them to not do it, but you don't know how to ask it without sounding like a total dick or some weird passive aggressive controlling person. We need a code word. No, but that's okay. That's my own thing. But we need a code word. Haven't you all experienced that? Like someone's tapping on your chair and driving, and you're like,
yeah, someone's making out with me, and I'm like, oh, just stop.
Yeah,
that never happened.
No, but like,
it's never happened.
But you know what I mean? It's like it's a weird thing. How the hell do you anyway? So, what I was saying, Ben, is I do think that like making this an increasingly black and white issue, like. We are forcing people, we're cornering them like one thing by one thing, one thing at a time, right? So first we get people on record, we make it official, right? None of this, it's complicated Facebook status, make it official. ring or no ring, right? You make it official where people are on this issue. And then you have this line between the people who are for it and against it. And then Democrats get to kind of use that against the Democrats who aren't for it. And then that becomes a thing. And now we have Democrats hopefully finally galvanizing around it, right? And now that's a thing. And they have a unified voice. And then they can talk about the Republicans being these sadistic, sociopathic ghouls who are indifferent to human suffering in a way that they can't right now because there's no political price for not really being for it.
Also remember that part of Bernie's general election, Bernie would have won strategy was that, yes, half of Republicans support Medicare for all. So Republicans, remember, back when they were trying to pass this, the Trump tax cut, $1.7 trillion, 85% of which went to the top 1%, like 20% of Republicans supported it? They didn't even like it. They railroad that kind of crap through all the time, complete indifference to what their base wants. And because Democrats don't really have a lot of haven't really set themselves up on a pedestal, won't support a wealth tax, even though overwhelming majorities of Republicans and Democrats support it, are very squeamish about not being tagged as the not going to, no more taxes, they're still living in the Bush era. Like, they don't point those kinds of things out with a kind of moral high ground that they could otherwise do. So this could be, if Democrats were to actually own this issue, this is a world where we actually are able to peel off those from the right in a way that FDR did. You get an electoral map that actually looks like that when the only red state is Vermont.
I agree. I think this is one of these not rare issues, but not a common issue where you can actually use it to grow the coalition. I think it does cross some political lines to some extent. I think it does give us inroads into a broader working class vote. And I think that it can be used exactly in that fashion to push a broader progressive agenda forward. I think my only point, and I think I think probably the biggest takeaway that matters to me is that none of us know or can write down or can draw the pathway, a diagram showing how we get from here where we are today to Medicare for all. And I wish we could. Come up with a battle plan and, and a whiteboard and draw a path and the things we need to do and what we need to accomplish. I just think political change doesn't happen that way. We don't know when the pivotal election will happen that will actually give us the Congress and the president that we need to pass Medicare for all.
Yeah,
all we can do. I'll just finish real quickly. All we can do is, but if we're ever going to achieve it, we need a massive, multifaceted, multifocal movement that is pushing in multiple directions all the time, every day. And so that has been sort of my sort of overriding perspective on this. And it may be vague, but I think it's realistic.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say I 100% agree with what Briahna said about using this to peel off Republicans, because lots of grassroots Republicans support Medicare for all. But that seems like a slightly different issue from Republican congressmen somehow being hurt by their vote against it, because Republican congressmen right now are not ambiguous about this. They're not pretending like maybe they like it. They are shouting from the rooftops that they're against it. The question is, why is it then that all these Republican voters who tell pollsters they support Medicare for all aren't punishing them for it? And they're probably, like, one of the big reasons is, what Katie just said, that the Democrats aren't using it in elections because most of the Democrats are against it too. So absolutely, 100% agree with all that. I just don't see how that gives I don't see how this, how putting Republican congressmen on record as something they're already on record about, which is their opposition to it, is going to help that. Also, I did just want to throw in, before it gets too much lost here, I think in that earlier recitation of historical examples, one of the ones that was brought up was the Civil Rights Act, and I just want to point out that I think that if what we mean by something like this is a failed House vote, right? So like 118 people voting for something in the House, then I don't think the Civil Rights Act is actually an example of that. In fact, before the Civil Rights Act passed in 1964, there was many years of different versions of Civil Rights Acts passing the House and then getting quashed in the Senate. And I'm not sure, honestly, I'm not sure how helpful even that really was to building movement momentum. But certainly,
one second.
So why do we have it eventually, though? That's the question.
Can you pause this for 1 second? Sorry. Literally free. Hold on 1 second.
I'm not making an argument for not doing anything. I'm making an argument for doing this.
1 second. Adam and Natalie were here earlier, and it's past their bedtime, so I want to bid them adieu. Thank you. And they have a little one to think of, Thackeray, to think of. Come back on. We will come back on. We'll have one of those personalist political chats where we go, what makes this Medicare for all power couple tick segments. One of those ones I have to do. But thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you so much. It was so good talking to all of you.
Like a Vogue article.
Take care, everyone. It was nice chatting.
Thanks,
Katie. Bye-bye.
Shalom. All right. Most honorary tribe.
Yeah. But what I was thinking is that
remind me at the end to tell you guys about how I thought he was Jewish.
You're bringing up, I'm not sure why you're bringing up civil rights.
I know. Wait, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. He's not Jewish. Everyone remember how old you were when you found this out. Look at Ben's face. Not member of the tribe. Okay.
Officially.
I thought you'd be surprised.
Sorry, maybe I was misremembering that. I thought that was one of the historical examples that was brought up earlier in the discussion.
No, the point, first of all, the civil rights movement was brought up in the context of activism, intensities, and the kind of spectacle that's needed to get something to pass. But you're actually proving my point by bringing it up in this other context of the fact that there were many failed civil rights acts before the Civil Rights Act, because that certainly says that having a failed vote doesn't preclude you from actually getting to the real thing. Now, neither of us knows
failed votes
of whether or not the failed votes postpone the process of actually getting a Civil Rights Act. So I don't know how useful it is to this conversation.
Well, except that these aren't failed votes in the same sense. They're votes that passed the House. And I think that there's a big difference between a failed vote in that symbolic victory of something passing the House and a failed vote in the sense of something that's both literally and symbolically a defeat and just makes it look like a loser.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Everyone keeps saying this, but every time I ask, what is the long-term consequence of a failed vote? How terrible is it going to be? Every day on television, I'm sorry, every single day you turn on the television and it's nonstop liberal commentators giving right-wing talking points about Medicare for all. I'm sorry, it literally cannot be worse. My job was to literally address all of these bad faith talking points. All you're going to get from TV nonstop, all day, all night, no matter how many Americans love this program, no matter how many people die, is this right-wing BS. And until somebody presents me with a plan to disrupt those narratives, an alternative plan to disrupt the media narrative that exists right now today that we are fighting against, I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of tolerance for, well, this could be bad because people want to spin Medicare for all bad. Yeah, the whole point of why we want to do this is because people spin Medicare for all as a negative thing, even while despite that, everyone loves it. And even while despite that, people are dying. We need someone to force their way on TV and let people know everyone wants this. The reason we don't have it is not because it's not electorally viable, but because Jim Clyburn and Joe Biden are stuffing their pockets with big pharma money.
Well,
And no one
100% agree with the last part, but I don't think this would be forcing us anybody onto TV to show that everybody wants it. I think my strategy is what Nando said earlier, that we should have the sit-ins, and I know you'd say yes and, but I don't think yes and. I think yes instead, because having the failed vote in the sense of failing in the House doesn't send the message that everybody wants it. It sends exactly the opposite message, whereas stuff like Nando's strategy earlier of, doing the sit-ins in Pelosi's office and all that stuff could actually usefully build momentum.
Okay, I have a question ready. So Ben, your show is called Give Them an Argument, right?
Yeah.
It's GTA, right? Okay, Give Them an Argument.
It's
now,
Grand Theft Auto.
I want to ask you something. So Nando, I don't know if you can remember this. Nando and I met at we met on the radio. He came on my show. Thank God, because like that person who introduced us, she's not really in our lives particularly. I was looking for someone.
I don't remember who it was.
Jess from Fusion. I was looking for a guest to talk about the Bernie's reparations thing, and she was like, ask Nando from Fusion. He's the one who asked him, and I was almost like, are you kidding? Why would I?
It was a total mistake.
Why would I talk to the enemy?
My fault.
It wasn't his fault. It was a bad headline. Meanwhile, of course, Hillary Clinton was asked about it and just gave some bullshit answer. So
the identical answer. Her, Obama, and Bernie gave the identical answer.
Yeah, but Bernie was great.
Only wanted to call Bernie out about it.
To be fair, though,
it drove me. It was one of the craziest things that's ever happened in my life. It drove me crazy. I was like, Ta-Nehisi Coates, what are you doing, man?
To be fair to Ta-Nehisi Coates, like he framed his argument in Bernie is better, whereas everyone else who made that argument was just like, anyway, whatever. Okay, but here's my thing.
I'm not talking about it behind his back. He knows how I feel about it.
Yeah, I had him on the show, but I was like, wait, I was so tame then, though. Wow. Okay, but Ben, here's the thing. I want to give you a chance. So Nando, I remember. Then I hosted a debate, a feminist debate about Bernie versus Hillary, and I asked you for a good idea for a question. You said make them debate the other side. So I had like Amanda Marcotte making the pro Bernie case. So I want to know, Ben,
wait, you got to surface that audio. Where is that? Is that like in an archive somewhere? My God.
Out of context and flip the internet.
I don't remember this at all. I don't remember any of this.
I have a very good memory. Plus,
I have like a horrible memory for this shit.
But Ben, let's say you were making the argument. Give them an argument. Give them make the counter argument, like as an exercise. And this is not planned. I just thought of this, by the way. I'll make you do it too, Brie, to be fair.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I want you to make each other's arguments. This is good. I like this idea. Thank you, Nando. Thank you, Nando, from 2016 for this idea.
Yeah, wow. So
you guys are both nerds.
I'm going to be, by the way, like, and I'm openly stalling for time here because I'm trying to think what I would think that Brie hasn't already said. But I have but God, I would love to find out what Amanda Marcotte said. Let's see. It
was basically that he had a good shot. She said he had a pretty good shot against Trump.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta dig that.
You gotta find that. You gotta find that tape and just clip it in a way that.
Actually, if you guys want, I can. If you want to think about it for a little bit, I have some other things I can read. Some other comments that were made. Let's see. Where are we?
Well, okay. I mean, I guess I just say this, right? Because I'm trying to do this in good faith.
I can do it. You want me to do it? Yeah, I can do it.
And I also don't want to just repeat, what's already been said. But I guess I think the best. So I think the best thing that you can say for it that I think is true, is that, like, honestly, if Pelosi didn't didn't cave in, and so AOC and the others had to vote against her, I think that would probably be useful right there. Just having the optic of AOC and Rashid Tlaib and all of them voting against Pelosi, because it would help. Like, it would be clarifying for people who only kind of pay attention to some of this stuff, and it would help them see that they're not at all on the same team, and that these are like opposing factions. That like I think that would actually be a good outcome. And actually, I should say, I think regardless of what anybody thinks about this plan that we've been arguing about, I think there's probably a case for them to just do that anyway, just regardless.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Like, I don't want to misrepresent AOC's argument on because she was asked this on Scahill's thing this morning, and from what I remember when I was listening to it, her argument was like, yeah, we could take down Pelosi, but then some more awful right-wing Democrat will take her place, and I'm like, I don't know about that.
That did not
yes, I believe that like in some sort of theoretical spectrum of right versus left, there is a possibility where some theoretical unknown fucking bullshit Democrat,
whatever his name is.
No, he's a senator. No, this would be a House. This would have to be a.
Well, whatever they.
I think that just taking down such a high-profile person and such a polarizing person like Pelosi would be like a earthquake politically. Like it would absolutely. So and even if she was replaced by some Democrat I've never even heard of, who is like just some awful like literal like oil and gas executive or whatever, that person wouldn't have the sort of institutional power within the caucus and within the media and within the donor class and all that shit that Pelosi obviously has a huge amount of power within. So I think that just the concept of taking down Pelosi just because is I think a worthy. I think it's worth, even if she's replaced by someone fucking ghoulish. I don't care.
Even more ghoulish.
Well, I don't think the thing is the more ghoulish they might be more ghoulish, but they'll be less powerful.
Right.
Versus Dick Cheney.
Well, but I'm going to give you that. But okay, look, that was great. Now, Bri, I'm going to give you a challenge. Ready? What is your answer to the? You can answer it or say how you would if you were giving the Sorotan counter. So forget, like, because Sirota is saying that you can do both, right? But what do you say to the idea that Sirota said on Jimmy Dore's show, which was like, what is going to happen if and when Nancy Pelosi decides? And this doesn't like the thing that Ben said should happen can still happen, but what happens if Pelosi decides she's going to ignore that, and then what's his name? McCarthy, is that his name?
The Republican, who would be the Republican?
Yeah. Who blames like Soros and stuff for shit. What and like, does that mean that people will either die or he becomes speaker? What is your response to that?
You're ready to frame it like that's the onus that's on Nancy Pelosi. She made a choice. She cared about power so much and her own personal aggrandizement that she was willing to throw the entire Democratic Party under the bus and hand over leadership to the Republicans just so that she could stick one to very popular progressive future leadership. Disgusting, just absolutely ruins any legacy that she might have had remaining. It's the same thing, by the way. This is the same argument we had. I said this on Rising this morning. Like Chomsky's like, oh, what if he calls your bluff? And would you actually be willing to withhold your vote for Biden? Fuck yeah. Excuse my French. I'm sorry, Mom. Hell yeah. Of course. That's the whole point. It has to be a credible threat. And the fact that you have to be ready to say, all I asked Joe Biden to do was legalize marijuana. Literally, I don't know what the ask is. We would have to have a conversation as a community and organize this well in advance, obviously, if this strategy were to be deployed. But the idea was we get together, we use the leverage. This is the exact same thing. We use the leverage of all the millions of people, millions in the streets across the world and say, these are voters. These are Black people. These are young people. These are Democrats. We will not vote for you. I have a list of 20,000 people in Michigan who say they will not vote for you, registered voters, Biden, unless you commit to legalizing marijuana, canceling student debt day one, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if you pick something that's a popular policy that would actually make them more electable, there is no credible argument on behalf of the person being asked to say no without the onus squarely sitting on them. If you stick the landing and frame it properly and don't give in to the idea that somehow a vote not for Biden is a vote for Trump.
Yeah, yes. Well, okay, cool. I wanted to show some. Have you guys been following the? Sorry, that was. Let me get back into this headspace because I was about to look at something else. Let me just check out this is great, guys. Let me check we got some good, look, wait, hold on. I'm trying to find, there are some great, All right, yeah, let's wrap. Nando has to wrap. I know Bri and I could go.
My girlfriend's mad at me. She's been cooking.
No. I can't go on that. I got to listen to tomorrow's edit of Bad Faith podcast.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, I'm doing The Hill tomorrow. I'm doing Rising tomorrow early.
Oh, wonderful.
So, guys, I may be moving it to Thursdays regularly, which is not going to be good for my late night live streams, but maybe it is. That means I'm going to have my Sunday night live streams go crazy, which is good.
I'm Wednesdays regularly now. Would Wednesdays be better for you?
Whichever, yeah.
Tell Crystal you want to swap with me. I'll take Thursdays.
Oh, you're Wednesdays? I get it. Yeah, cool.
Just kidding.
Well, but this was great, and I'll stay on for a little bit. And I just wanted, one thing I want to ask you in particular to address, Bri, is that someone in the comments was saying that they feel like women of color are being asked to fix this, a reference to it being AOC. So I just wanted you to, have your thoughts about, if you had a response to that. No offense to you, Ben.
No,
I don't mean to invisibilize you, but yeah.
Ben is a woman of color on the inside.
Damn straight.
I appreciate and respect any individual who doesn't feel like they want to carry any kind of burden. I say this all the time when people say, like, why should I have to go and talk to racists or Trump supporters and recruit them? You don't. Yeah. You absolutely feel no obligation to. Feel free to live your best life. Take care of your own mental health. Go forth. Yes. God bless. However, the reality is that these harms are going to affect us disproportionately. So I am invested in talking about it and doing all the work necessary because I'm trying to save my own Black ass, if I may use a little bit of colorful language. So you don't have to. Nobody has to. Nobody's knocking on anybody's doors and forcing them at bayonet point out into the streets to march and talk to racist white people or what have you. Right. But the reason that Black women do all the work and marginalized communities tend to be on the front lines, and why AOC wanted to run for Congress and represent her largely disproportionately Latino district, is because she's invested in the lives of those people who are from her own community. And that's a choice you can make for yourself or make for other people. There's no judgments there whatsoever. But I'm personally not a huge fan of that framing.
Well, I don't have the thing. To be clear, she was maybe you this is what you're responding to, but it was as if like people are calling them out on this. Like, why should they be the ones who have to deal with this? Because
they're the squad. The squad are none of them are white. I didn't make them that white. Right. They're not white. There's not a single one of them. In my article, I mentioned Katie Porter and AOC.
Oh yeah.
AOC is in this because she got in the Twitter chat. Like I bet she's having a lot of regrets right now, but she kind of inserted herself into it. And then two, I brought up Katie Porter because I was thinking of the people who have had the most viral effect in terms of their congressional testimony. And those are the two that are really boss.
Right.
So,
and don't
right.
Yes. Thank you for seeing us. No, and don't forget, guys. Oh my God, terrible. No, I prefer when Leslie Lee is like, the reason that white television, and Katie, you're people too. I prefer when I get that kind of like exemption. But I was gonna say that I just wanted to give everyone a chance to talk about. Do you guys have like 5 more minutes, or do you? Well, Nando, you have to go. I wanted to play that. Mayor
5 minutes. 5 minutes. Okay. 5 minutes.
All right, I gotta play this thing. Let me make sure this works. I mean, it's too good to pass up. We started watching it. I think it's incredibly important. Let's see. Maria, do you have the? Oh wait, no, I have it in. Everyone say hi to Maria and to Brad and to Kelly.
Hi, Maria,
Brad, and Kelly.
And like.
Oh wow.
And like and everything. Okay. Maria, do you have the Oh wait, I think I have it. Hold on. I'm looking for the.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Subscribe to Bad Faith Podcast. Yes, not now, but after. Not now.
Yes. Right now, you subscribe. You gotta stay here, but then once we're done, you scurry off and you do that. Maria, is the case study Bernie clip? Is that in? You know what I think it is? We have too many things, so I'm gonna have to delete some of them. Do we have a copy of this? Oh no, it's view only. Guys, I'm doing this because Jimmy does this. I was watching him the other day, and he just talked. So, Maria, can we have the? Can I delete all the other stuff on here, Maria? I can't because it's view only. Can I have the Mayor Pete panel with Jason, with our dear friend Jason, whatever his name is? Sorry.
Johnson?
Yeah, sorry, Bri.
Trigger alert. Friend of the show.
Friend of the show, yeah. Trigger warning.
Excuse me, Dr.
Man,
Johnson.
I used to sort of semi work with him.
Oh, right, because you guys were all connected, right?
I'm sorry, Nando.
Oh my God.
Okay, question. Why
I
can't
actually remember Russiagate. Remember that whole thing? When that first, I was with Jason Johnson when that story first broke, like the first, and he was like, "Well, this is an act of war," and I was like, "What are you talking about, dude? What the fuck are you talking about?" It's like, "This is an act of war. This is textbook act of war. You know, this is what it is in like the thing." And I'm like, "Are you insane? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Oh, an act of war with Russia? Are you crazy?" Oh my God. And that little did I know that was going to be like a 5-year fucking bullshit.
He's going to be running MSNBC in 20 years.
The clips of that I sent you that were like a 3-thing thread, even if you just send it one at a time. I just can't find it now.
Katie's the best.
Okay. Thanks. You're laughing at me?
We heard everything about that. You like went off screen.
I didn't want to be distracting. I was about to mute myself, but I was like, I don't know if I can do that. I just really want to. Mayor Pete. Yeah, Mayor Pete. Sorry, because in this thing, if it's just too big. I got the Justin Jackson thing, and that takes up a lot of room. And it's also view only, so I have to. I don't know if I have to request edit access. This is so hard. I really admire Amy Goodman, by the way.
I think she might have a little team.
That's what I'm saying. What if I was like, it's just grit. It's just pure grit. These Google things are fucking annoying. Just make it easier. And also StreamYard, I'm always talking about you and saying nice things about you. But guys, make it fucking easier. Your fucking audio is a disaster. Every single time I go into a new window, I have to stop share again and give it audio permission. All right. Now you got what I'm saying. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly the thing that I just complained about because it is annoying, but it's worth it. Okay, share screen. Oh, and this is the other thing Nando knows I love doing. I sound like a totally annoying Jewish grandmother narrating as if this is at all interesting. Let me share my screen. Let me share audio. All right. All right. All right. But here's my fave.
Kim, I'd like to talk to you about the Biden choices thus far. We had the same conversation the last time
you guys hear?
Were on, but the list of names has been added to. We learned today Buttigieg transportation, Jennifer Granholm energy. Tonight, Axios has a piece guessing that the Republican in the cabinet, and it's in traditional presidencies, it is traditional to have someone or try to have someone from the opposite party, that Biden is looking at a Republican perhaps for commerce. They further speculate that it might be a Meg Whitman type. What do you make of the slate you've seen thus far?
First of all, what's a Meg Whitman type?
Well, it's like a white woman CEO, but like
right. It's it's the type who says, "Oh, I didn't know that my nanny was."
She lost like $1 bajillion as a CEO of Quibi in like the most spectacular failure. In the
she was at Quibi too.
She was a CEO of Quibi.
Well, before that, though, she was a whatchamacallit. She was at
CEO of Hewlett Packard, and then she ran for governor.
Lost in large part. Well, not in large part.
Lost, even though she spent all her money. But yeah, I just love like Brian. Well, we're getting breaking news that Jennifer Granholm has been elected the Secretary of Energy. This is I am being told this is the first grandma to ever be a cabinet secretary. Noah Berlatsky tweeted that grandparents are an oppressed class by their children. This is historic, ladies and gentlemen. She's not necessarily BIPOC, but I think we can agree that grandmothers are actually just as oppressed as people of color in this country. I myself am soon to be a grandfather. My daughter, Allison Williams, got her ass eaten on girls, and I think that made her pregnant, but I'm not sure how that works.
Nor is it my lane to know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Well, Jennifer Granholm is a lesbian, so I would like you to redo that entire thing. Yeah.
Is she really?
Yeah, but the family shit is real. Yeah, she is.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
What? Because I come from Michigan. She was my governor for 8 years, and I don't remember that ever coming up once.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess you should. I'm just kidding. I was gonna. Let's just do the totally PC woke shaming thing.
I will say.
Oh my God, is she not a lesbian?
I don't think she's a lesbian. No.
You just judged that because she had short hair in that pic, Katie.
Okay, it's not just me. I just immediately find saying former Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm. I wish she were a lesbian. It's not just me who says that, but I really thought she was.
but you know, I will say, you know,
so,
like,
so your thing applied
on the subject of energy, like, you know, when I think about Jennifer Granholm, because I do come from there, right? I mean, this is a deep cut, but I always remember the gubernatorial debate the first time she ran for governor, when one of the questions was such and such many people in Detroit are facing utility shutoffs this winter because they can't pay their bills, blah, blah, blah. And, like, the question had to do with benefits cuts. And her answer, I swear to God, was, I support welfare reform. She she didn't even want to like she didn't even want to engage with the question because she was just like so like afraid of being tarred with like left anything. So like,
wow.
I mean, she really deeply sucks.
Okay, I'm gonna need some some cover. So I shouldn't be doing this live, but I'm just gonna put this out here. Here's Jennifer Granholm and her husband. Okay, just want to put this out here. Look, I will cut in a queer friend.
Just because she's married, married to a guy doesn't mean she's not lesbian.
Of course not, but that's not my point. Here's my point. Ready? Right. Hold on, please. Please hold. Please clap. Look, I'm not saying anything about this. I'm just saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm just showing that photo.
Katie.
I'm just saying. Look, I'm not saying anything about her that I'm not saying about him. I need a gay friend.
I gotta go. I will not participate. I will not participate in this gay shaming.
All right, I'll cut this out. Can I please continue playing this? Oh wait, no, I have to share the thing.
We want you to just play it. We want you to.
I'm not gonna. I'm sorry that I center beards. Okay. That is an important demographic, okay?
Well, it's another oppressed class. We don't talk about them enough.
We don't talk about them. And that's a really beautiful form of cooperation. That's all I'm saying. But here's my thing. I'm going to finish this, and I'll cut this out before everyone gets canceled. All right. Although I think I'm going to cancel you guys, honestly, because you're beardophobes.
Well, two things. Someone says, Katie, I'm queer, and I kind of agree with you, but you're still canceled.
A Meg Whitman type. What do you make of the slate you've seen thus far?
And this is Jeb Bush's guy, right?
Well, two things. One, I think it's a Biden-esque slate. It's pretty crazy how much criticism I've seen from the left, really. The boys of the left know how to eat their young. You never saw this in Republican administrations where you know because you're a literal Republican. Group or from that interest group, and that seems to be all the coverage around Biden.
What interest?
Your whole party is interest groups.
I know.
And also interest groups.
Yeah, exactly.
Cabinet, a very competent cabinet. And out of today's picks, I just want to call out Pete Buttigieg once again.
Yeah, I want to call him out too.
Joe Biden is making a first. This is going to be the first gay cabinet official confirmed by the Senate. And this is massive news. I know in a lot of in urban pockets on the coasts.
Urban? Really? You're going to mention urban?
Is pretty common these days.
Pete,
this doesn't seem like as big of a deal as it might have 10 years ago. But for a lot of kids in a lot of parts of this country, Pete was a huge role model. And
wait, can you stop this?
Yes, of course.
Okay, no one knew who Pete Buttigieg was before like 2018 tops. So you're telling me there's some closeted gay kid somewhere who was like, ooh, I really want to come out.
Me.
But I'm not going to look to any of the celebrities. I'm not going to look to Ricky Martin. I'm dating myself now. But like
Will and Grace.
Even that's dating ourselves.
It's even weirder than that because the idea, like if you listen to what he just said, it's the first openly gay cabinet member who's been confirmed by the Senate.
Yeah.
So like
it's an incredibly narrow
kid out there who's thinking, well, I'm worried that because I'm gay, like the highest I can rise in life is a cabinet secretary who was not confirmed by the Senate. It was just put in his recess appointment.
Exactly. They have Grinnell shame. They have Richard Grinnell shame. And the reason he said that about the confirmation, of course, is because as we were saying earlier, Nando, Trump, all LGBTQ wokeness, praise be upon him, because he added the Q when it wasn't there in the teleprompter. Long story short, we'll get back to that another time. No, but he named Richard Grinnell the first openly gay cabinet member. But yes, okay, he wasn't confirmed by the Senate. But I do love the idea of a gay kid being like, oh my God, there's a cabinet member.
I love the idea of the Democrats not confirming him because
the Senate, because we're talking about young kids who are paying attention to which members of the cabinet got Senate confirmation votes.
I know.
Well, I love the idea of the Democrats not confirming Richard Grenell because he was gay. But
that's what we should start. I already tweeted stop.
Yeah, we should start that rumor.
Stop erasing Grinnell. Let's see if anyone picks it up.
I gotta go. Go.
Bye, Nando.
Later.
Bye, Nando.
Take it easy. Bye. Love you guys.
Bye. Love you.
Good to see you.
So they could look to who modeled what it was like to have a
also this guy's voice sounds like an SNL character.
And leave a place like Indiana and succeed. And so
is he Canadian? No disrespect.
Obviously, as I mentioned last time, my
his mouth is in a straight line, so I think no.
Left cabinet. I don't know what else you think you'd get.
Yeah, what do you think you get? You fucking
you're right. And these LGBT
brats.
firsts should be correctly noted and celebrated every
well,
time.
If they're going to be correctly noted, shouldn't we say LGBTQ?
So, Jason, you heard what Tim just said.
You heard
about
Jim just said. Jason, oh, this is great. Okay, hold on. We got some more of the same thing. And this is my big complaint with screen share with whatchamacallit, is that now I have to go back, do a little stop. Where's the second one of this? Hold on. To go to this other thing. That guy is like, don't worry, guys. We're going to do a show. Can we remind everyone or remind ourselves how amazing it was? You guys all remember when Mayor Pete was busted, literally forging, like pretending black leaders had come out in support of a plan of his.
110%. That was some excellent reporting from The Intercept.
From Ryan Graham. And like, can you just imagine for a second, Bree, we were doing this the other day with something else. I can't remember what, but like, just everyone close their eyes and imagine for 1 second, a story comes out about Bernie Sanders
taking a photograph of a Kenyan woman.
In Kenya, pretending that she was a black leader in Burlington and claiming that various black leaders of Burlington had endorsed him when they indeed had not. And imagine, like, Out Magazine did a story on this.
I mean, especially since there's like 3 black people in Burlington, and I'm pretty sure I went on a date with one of them.
Oh, well, I hope it was.
He was adopted by a white family. Very lovely guy.
Yeah. Oh my God, 1 second. So then, wait, who's he talking about? Okay, I got to play you the next part of this. And Bree, I hope you're able to. Hold on. Okay. Okay. Here we go. I really did think she was lesbian, Granholm, but I wasn't being cutesy about that. And
I would never dare say anything like that. We have this from AOC.
You guys here, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Today, quote, you have an individual appointment here, an individual appointment there. What is the overall message from the big picture in this entire cabinet put together?
That voice is something.
So
bad. The Democrat immediately branded this the start of purity testing, 36 days before any hands.
Okay.
Why don't you actually name the person or just use the term like everyone else does without any explanation? A friend of mine.
This purity test stuff, it's like, I'm hearing that progressives don't want murderous Satanists on the cabinet. They are like, I mean, I wrote an article about this already back in the summer, but like, I think we should do some affirmative owning on the idea that like it's not a purity test; it's called having standards, and it's very brave of you to admit that you have none.
Yeah, it actually is a good self-own. I mean, it's also like, you know, when the argument is that it's purity test, it's a purity test or purity politics to demand that people not be from Wall Street. And they had the gall, the people making this argument, they had the gall to then say that, you know, it undermines diversity. It's like, why isn't that purity politics? Like, I don't accept that, but why is that not purity politics? What is the thing? Why is that not dispensable and the other thing is? Like, let's just be real and look at how those things are interrelated, obviously. But like,
well, I do want to shout out Sherilyn Ifill, who was the only person who pushed back against Joe Biden on that leaked civil rights leaders call, and said specifically, diversity of appearance is well and good, but we need substantive diversity, ideological diversity, and no more prosecutors on the bench.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, well, so I'm glad she expressed she did engage in some pushback against Joe 3 to 4 out of 7 commercials are now biracial Biden. That should be his nickname. Ben, I don't know if you saw this, but it's one of his best moments.
And said to me in response, quote, would you perhaps prefer the Trump dear leader cabinet for 4 more years?
Oh, that's a really good. Oh, I never thought of that before. It could have been Trump. So take whatever we give you. I know.
Which is so like the election is over. Like
yes.
the Trump cabinet is no longer an option. Right. Why is this being talked about?
Exactly. You can't scare us with that anymore. Now it's just like not even. Now it's just like it could have been worse. It could be worse. Like it's no longer an argument for. It no longer has utilitarian argument, right? It's no longer like we need to accept this because we need to defeat that person and that cabinet. And now that we're, but now no, we've defeated it. So there's no justification for comparing them. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, it's just literally irrelevant at this point.
Yeah.
Years. Jason, your answer.
Also, by the way, Brian Williams is so dumb. He's like just smart enough to know how to kind of sound coherent, but he's just so slow at the wheel or at the pilot. God, remember he lied about being in a chopper.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that this guy, he and Joy Reid should just have a show together, like Disgraced Liars Tonight or something.
Really, just the whole channel.
Yeah, right.
Look, this is not going to be the red wedding, right? Where the Democrats show up and they all kill each other and they're fighting. I don't think.
What's that? What's the red wedding?
He's making a Game of Thrones reference. It's a reference to the show that's been off the air for a year and a half.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say that's actually kind of fun. Like this is I think this is the first time I've heard anybody make a Game of Thrones reference.
I thought it was like a Soviet
at least
thing.
2019.
Also, it's like from an episode that's like from season 3, so this is like 10 years ago. What?
Well, Brie, 10 years ago is when people didn't think it was when people had no idea. He's hearkening back to those times when people who had no idea who Pete Buttigieg were inspired by the fact that he was gay and they didn't know who he was. Okay.
That's what's going to happen. What you have is a lot of jockeying for influence. Now, for example, AOC was on the climate committee for the Democratic sort of platform this year. Gina McCarthy is the climate czar. They work together. I'm pretty sure she's okay with that. I tend to think as much as it's an accomplishment for diversity, look, I've always thought that Mayor Pete sort of failed up, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, now this is one of those few moments.
He's right. He was getting dragged for this all day on Twitter. I even liked one of his tweets. Despite him being a vile human being to me. Because if you're right, you're right. I call him like I see him.
Yes.
Jimmy Dore, Jason Johnson, whomever. I don't care what you said in the past. If you're right, you're right. And he is right here. And all of the white libs turn on him on a dime. It was remarkable. He should figure out who his real allies are.
We should do it. By the way, we have to have a thing. Leslie has to be here for it because he's so good at this stuff. Like we should have a name that troll, and we have to figure out if a troll. It can't be based on the person because then we know. But like we could probably figure out if it was a Kamala K-Hive person or like a Beehive person just by the things that they say. Like they have different cadences. Anyway, but
honest, I think there are transportation secretaries that you could have gotten out of Michigan, Jeanette Sadiq gone, Fonte Carver out of Cleveland. I think there's a lot more people that you could get at a local level that know a lot more about transportation than Mayor Pete. But I also think quite basically that some of these selections are not just about Biden filling his cabinet, not just about giving favors to people who may have endorsed him during the primary, but also perhaps kneecapping potential rivals for Senator.
Okay, again, good, fair, rational point, right? I mean,
Harris in 2024, 2028. So I think all of those things are being discussed right now. But in the end, Brian, the positions
then he goes
that matter
bad.
the
Then he
most
gets
to me
bad.
are Attorney General and Labor Secretary, because those are the positions that are going to be the most important in deconstructing the autocracy that Donald.
I think we should push back on his liberal use of the word autocracy, by the way.
Is this an oligarch joke?
Exactly, yes.
Setting together a fair and more equitable labor environment for people to survive in post-COVID. Those are the positions that I think are going to have the greatest influence. And those are the positions where Joe Biden has to pick people who are going to push for serious structural change, because we can't keep going the way we've been going. And most of these picks, they're par for the course.
Man, Brian, I just have to say, my mother was.
Oh wait, we got to hear about his mom.
What about his mom?
I know. Hold on. That's a real cliffhanger, huh? Hold on. Let's see. Also, can someone look up where he's from? I think he's Canadian or maybe Midwestern.
What's his name?
Tim. What is his name? Tim Olson. What is it? I called him a Herb. It's night. I was so mad. You should hear the audio of this. I was like, what the fuck? I was like screaming. I was so annoyed.
Is he on? Oh, is he a professor at SUNY Pulse?
No, he's at Bulwark, that like right wing thing. He's a white never Trumper Jebediah Bush guy. I love saying all that stuff.
Tom Olson? Oh, here we go.
Tim.
Oh, Tim Olson. My bad.
Is it not Olson? I had a little thing with him. Couldn't fall asleep. It was a bad idea. I tagged him. Then Liz Monster, what's her name? Smith came in.
Liz Smith, yeah.
She's a monster. Like, I say that as a, I kind of respect it, but she's an absolute monster.
He doesn't have a wiki or anything. No, this is Leif Olson.
No, Tim. Is that not?
Nothing is coming up for Tim Olson.
Okay, man, it's definitely Tim. Hold on, I can tell you who.
Oh wait, Tim Olson on Getting Out from Under the Shadow of His Famous Father.
Hold on.
Oh,
Tim,
that's not him.
He's like Republicans against Trump. Hold on, Republicans.
He's not a postdoctoral student at Columbia. He's not a systems manager.
Tom or Tim? Hold on. Tim Miller. Sorry, Tim Miller. Miller. Olson, Miller, whatever. Miller. You find him now?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, wow. Guys. Oh my God, you're so dumb, Tim. You don't even know what you're saying. You're so dumb. Sorry. I say that with nothing but the most with the utmost respect. Hold on. Wait for his argument.
He lives in Oakland, but it doesn't say where he's from.
Where he's from? He's definitely not from Oakland.
I mean, he was hired in Florida, so maybe he's from Florida.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Okay, watch this. Ready? Totally tone deaf. I mean, I don't even know. Okay.
Oh, a Colorado native. He's almost Canadian.
Or Midwestern. Yeah. Does that explain his like ski bum ponytail?
I did feel like his accent felt kind of Midwest.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay, ready? Here he's gonna bring it.
I failed up like Mayor Pete. I mean that
happened. I'm telling you, the NSA is all up in my interwebs. Also, I'm so tired of people claiming you don't get credit because you're a never Trumper. Like, you supported the Republicans during the Iran-Contras, the Iraq War, both of them. Now you want credit because there's no moral. Clearly, it's not like about killing people. That has nothing to do with it because you would have been gone anyway.
Katie, my sweet, my dear friend, what is happening right now?
I'm waiting for this thing to load. What's it showing for you guys?
Just a spiral of death on Jason Johnson's channel.
Well, I'm sorry, I know trigger. Anyway, we don't have to. I think we saw enough, but I don't know why this is happening.
Well, I am curious. Yeah, I mean, I guess
you're curious, right?
Curious about what Olson's mother said about Pete Buttigieg and how she always hoped she'd be transportation secretary.
I mean, he's so dumb. He's like, if only I failed up. Like, do you not understand that? That's what that means. Like, your mom. Yeah. The whole point is that failing up means your mom is proud of where you wound up.
Also, I mean, if this guy's a never Trump Republican on MSNBC, I think he did.
Well said. That is a good rule. That is a good general rule. Yeah. Let me see. If we can't get this now, I'll just stop it. But let me give it the old college. Let me give it. Where did Pete go to college? Let me give it the old Rhodes Scholar, Oxford.
Pete Buttigieg?
Yeah.
You don't remember? He tells you at every opportunity.
Harvard, Yale, Princeton. Which one?
Like Mayor Pete.
Harvard.
Okay, sorry. All right. Can you tell me if you can hear it? Yes?
If he's failing. He's really failing.
You get the audio?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Quite well. Won the Iowa caucus. First J-man to run for president of a major party. He seems to be doing all right to me. I don't know.
Do you not understand what failing up means?
He clearly doesn't. Also, Bernie won Iowa.
Veteran and a Rhodes Scholar in the equation. Two good things to have.
I'm like so team Jason right now.
Any cabinet, any collection of adults.
Oh yeah, that's good. Rhodes Scholar. Definitely want him in the cabinet.
You also get a decorated military veteran and a Rhodes Scholar in the equation. Two good things to have, I would think.
I want nothing more than those things in the Department of Transportation.
One of my best friends from college went to Harvard, obviously, and spent 8 years in the military. She ran like nuclear subs on aircraft carriers, is very smart and talented and actually has good politics. And every other day I say to her, just run. Because apparently all you need to do for people to believe you can do something in this world is have gone to Harvard and been in the military. And unlike Pete Buttigieg, you're actually in there for a real long time. You learned a couple of things. You were a speechwriter for a 4-star Black female general, and you can maybe do a little bit of something with your life. Plus, you're from Utah. That's fun.
My God, are you kidding? Wait, that's a real curveball. Do it. You should run her campaign.
I tell her all the time. I told her today, in fact.
Oh, wait, what did he say? This cretin?
Any collection of adults.
Oh my God. He just says like literally nothing except for platitude after platitude and like offensive meritocratic, technocratic platitude.
A decorated military veteran and a Rhodes Scholar in the equation. Two good things to have, I would think.
Why? Who cares? Here's the thing also. If I could just say, so I was listening to Pod Save's like.
That's on you, by the way. That's your fault.
It's been a great and fascinating conversation. Let's do this exact same thing.
Sorry,
again.
this is just the most.
Jason Johnson.
That's just such a
Tim
great.
Miller, two longtime friends of this broadcast. Thank you, gentlemen, both.
I failed up like Mayor.
I wish you did fail up like him, so we wouldn't have to see you on MSM. Well, that's not true. Anyway, let me close this out.
So I was listening to the Pod Save episode, and they were clearly struggling to justify all of these picks in light of how no one's qualified for the job they've been chosen for, and it's clearly just patronage and paying back favors, which is the same thing. And it was amazing to hear their struggle, because basically what it came down to is they just said everybody is so smart and so hardworking. They're so smart and they're so hardworking. They're so smart and so hardworking. Oh my God. You can throw a rock and hit someone who's smart and hardworking. Everybody thinks that everyone they like is smart and hardworking. And it was really kind of galling. One guy, they said, well, he's the hardest working person I know. He runs to work 5 miles every day. Why that qualifies you for a cabinet post, I don't know, but I'm happy for his cardiovascular health, I guess.
Honestly, I don't want that if you're in transportation. I want somebody who uses transportation, not their own body. I now really don't trust
it. It wasn't Pete. I don't remember who it was, but they completely breezed over the whole Velsex, Secretary of Agriculture, Shirley Sherrod, what's her name? Marsha Fudge fiasco.
Marsha, please don't just nominate Black people to HUD and Labor. Fudge then gets nominated by Biden to, I don't know if you know this, Ben, a couple days after she made that comment, she was then nominated to HUD after she said people need to stop like pigeonholing Black people into certain places like HUD and Labor. Yep. And then on that leaked call, with all the Black leadership, the NAACP president Derek Johnson specifically said to Biden, I think this is a concern in Georgia. You should be worried about losing Georgia because Shirley Sherrod was beloved in Georgia. Tom Vilsack is loathed by small farmers because he's a big ag guy. He's loathed by Black farmers because he fired Shirley Sherrod. Right. And it could hurt you. It could really hurt you in the state. And what did Joe Biden say? He said, you just need to learn more about Tom Vilsack's record. Also, defund the police is what's really going to hurt us. Right. Let's not do defund the police. I love the way it's like, was it like JFK files? Like they're going to like redact his record and discover he's this radical, like social justice, civil rights guy. But let me I just want to leave you guys with one thing, because I think it's not fair to leave on the downer. 5 minutes of all this is 23 seconds. That's how long it is. Okay. Because we have to leave on a good note, on a happy note. So yeah, you're right. That's fine. You're sounding like that's like my dad when I'm living at my parents' place, not in the city. They have another place, and like every night I'm like he's like, go to bed. I'm like, okay, 5 minutes. I mean, it's not like I'm an adult or anything, but he yells at me. It's like, you just said 5 minutes.
The way we do every other election.
Can you guys hear that? Yes. All right. This is magic.
The way we do every other election by giving it to the person who got the most votes. Just a thought. Brings us together.
This country was built. It is a movement reaching into church basements and barbershops, into universities.
I'm sorry.
Neighborhoods, and we can light up the city. Shines as a beacon around the world once more.
And this is our chance to answer that call.
The way we do every other election by giving it to the person who got the most votes. Just a thought. Brings us together.
This country was built. Like weird and disturbing that the two people like who were running for president this year who seemed like the most like grown in vats, like in terms of how they presented themselves politically. Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah, totally.
Weirdly, one thing they have in common is not only were they not actually grown in vats, they were raised by Marxist academics, and then something went horribly wrong.
Yes. You know, Shuja Hader wrote a piece called Centrist Child Syndrome about Kamala and Pete. Yeah.
When Pete Buttigieg runs for president, do not bother to ask me if I'm voting for him. Don't do the thing. Everyone wanted to know if I was voting for Biden. Don't ask me. You know the answer.
The answer is I'm going to be his
press person. You want me to vote for the Democratic candidate? I don't know where I'm going to be living. I could be a Michigan voter. I could be a Pennsylvania voter. My vote might matter. Don't ask me who I'm voting for if the Democratic candidate is Pete Buttigieg.
I mean, I really wanted to somehow, you know what, Trump, I don't know how they could have done that, but Trump should have put like Kamala Harris's dad's name on a ticket for the, who'd they leave us? Oh, they left a ticket for Tupac. Remember they left a ticket for Tupac?
Oh my God, what if Kamala's dad ran on the Green Party?
They should have, or they should have left him a ticket to attend. He never would have come, you know? But yeah, he should run.
Yeah, that's hard. I don't know what's going on over there. Obviously, you know, people are human beings.
Yeah, of course. He just didn't like that she mentioned that she came from Jamaica, and so of course smoked weed.
It's like the Obama. He has all those brothers, and they're all so complicated. And somehow he managed to. Oh, it's really coming down outside. Somehow he managed to like squash any interviews and inquiry. There's like he has like 15 siblings. There's like a ton of them.
Yeah.
And no one ever spoke to them.
That's like some Clintonian coordination. Yeah, how do you do that?
Well, we our fourth estate is more like a little townhouse.
I know, but how did like the Clintons not get her done the way they did with the Indonesian garb photo?
Well, they probably found the Indonesian garb photo as they were tracking his photo album and all his exploits across the world to visit family members.
Anyway, well, you guys, thank you so much for coming on. This was really fun.
It was great. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah.
Hard working lady on the left.
Oh, thank you. And I'll put everyone's bios in, and so you can find them and their shows. Bree, Bad Faith Podcast, Ben.
Go to Bad Faith YouTube.
Go to Bad Faith YouTube
and subscribe and like.
Yes. And Ben.
Yeah, go to YouTube and subscribe there. New episodes premiere on Monday nights at 7:30 Eastern. So the next one's going to be Amber Frost and Slavoj Žižek. So that should be a lot of fun.
That's funny because our tomorrow's episode is Slavoj Žižek.
What? He's making the rounds.
He's making the rounds. He's stuck quarantining in Ljubljana. What else does he have to do?
It's true. Yeah, I gotta have him on. Maybe I'll have him and James. I want James Adomian to interview him as Žižek. You know, like he did with Bernie. Yeah, that's what Žižek. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Bye, everyone. I'll stay on to answer some questions. Bye, guys.